Good evening. Welcome to our town council meeting. Would you please silence your cell phones? We're going to call the meeting to order, and we are going to have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Boy Scouts Troop 16 out of Durham.
Before we begin, I'd just like to say thank you for letting us come and answer our questions.
You're welcome.
I pledge allegiance to
the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And if you remain standing while we have the invocation by Councilman Culleton.
Loving God, we ask you to come amongst us tonight as we do the business of the town of Paradise. We ask you to protect all of our citizens and all of our public safety people, police, fire, first responders, and protect all the construction workers that are working to rebuild our town. And may you be in peace in the world. Amen.
Dina, roll call.
Roll call. Vice Mayor Bolin?
Here.
Councilmember Culleton?
Here.
Councilmember Jones?
Here.
Councilmember Tryon?
Here.
And Mayor Crowder.
Here.
Thank you. Oh, you have to turn them on.
So item 1E is a presentation by Charles Anderson. He'll be presenting the Helen Putnam Award from the League of California Cities to the town of Paradise. Charles.
Good evening, Mayor Crowder and council members. Thank you for allowing me to present the Helen Putnam Award for Excellence to the town of Paradise this evening. Before presenting this award, I will briefly explain the significance of the award for which it is named. Who was Helen Putnam? Helen Putnam was a mother, a school teacher, principal, mayor, and county supervisor. But most of all, Helen Putnam was a person who viewed meeting one's potential as the measure of success. Excellence to Helen Putnam was shown by someone who did his or her very best. She was as supportive and loving of people who did their best as she was of people who did the best. To the League of California Cities and California's cities, Helen Putnam defined excellence. The award for excellence is given in her memory. Established in 1982 by the League of California Cities, the Helen Putnam Award for Excellence recognizes outstanding achievements by California cities. The Helen Putnam Award for Excellence is awarded each year in 12 categories to cities that incorporate innovative solutions to community needs or improves efficiency in the delivery of services. For 2022, I present the Helen Putnam Award in the category of Planning and Environmental Quality to the town of Paradise for its Paradise Long-Term Community Recovery Plan. Following the most destructive fire in California's history, 2018 Camp Fire, the town of Paradise recognized the need for a comprehensive strategy document to guide recovery over the course of the next 20 years. Leveraging financial support for local brewery Sierra Nevada and the North Valley Community Foundation, a local nonprofit organization, the town of Paradise reached out to its displaced and traumatized residents to gather input on what would become the long-term community recovery plan. This plan identifies 39 recovery projects which guide the town and its recovery partners as they navigate recovery 3 years after the fire. Congratulations to the town of Paradise for a job well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
At this time, I wanted to see if the council and whoever else might be involved would like to come up and have a photo and so I can hand off the award.
I think we need to have the entire council, the bench, Colette and Mark and Barry, all of us.
Okay, great.
Okay, time out.
And Kevin.
The whole bench?
Kevin? Kevin. Kevin wasn't here.
Well.
So do we get money back? Where do I stand? Around this way? You wrote it. Okay, come on over here, guys.
Say cheese. Yeah.
You want me to turn around anyway?
Thank you. And
This was get Eric.
What's that?
Yeah, Eric.
Steve. Tony, get in here. Susan, get in here. Yeah.
Well, let's get some citizens in here too, you know, what the heck? I mean, if we're gonna include everybody.
John, can you take a picture?
No, no.
Hey,
Oh, that'd be a challenge.
Kate, come on.
Okay. We try to do that. All right. Okay, we ready? Yeah. Give us a second, we'll just make sure.
Take several, Jen.
Take several.
Okay, I think we're ready.
One should be one.
Thank you so much.
There goes your all your memory.
I did something on my foot. I don't know what the hell it was, but it's that old age thing.
Don't say that.
Okay. So, item 1F is Community Development Director Tony Lindsay and Code Enforcement Supervisor Roy Wallace will receive the proclamation recognizing the second week of October as Code Enforcement Officer Appreciation Week. Whereas the state of California has proclaimed the second week of October as Code Enforcement Officer Appreciation Week, and whereas code enforcement officers provide for the safety, health, and welfare of citizens throughout the town of Paradise through the enforcement of local, state, and federal laws and ordinances dealing with various issues of building, zoning, housing, animal control, environmental, health, and life safety, and whereas code enforcement officers have challenging and demanding roles and often do not receive recognition for the job they do in improving quality of life for residents and businesses of local communities. And whereas the role of many code enforcement officers has expanded in recent years, with jurisdictions increasingly relying on their expertise and training of code enforcement officers in their communities. And whereas code enforcement officers are dedicated, highly qualified, and highly trained professionals who share the goals of preventing neighborhood deterioration, enhancing communities, ensuring safety, and preserving property values through knowledge, training, and application of housing, zoning, and nuisance laws. And whereas code enforcement officers often have a highly visible role in the town of Paradise and regularly interact with the public and a variety of federal, state, county, and local officials in their capacity as code enforcement officers. And whereas the town of Paradise wants to recognize and honor the code enforcement officers that serve our community and acknowledge their role in leading the way to improve quality of life within our community. Now therefore be it resolved that the Town Council of the Town of Paradise hereby proclaims the second week of October in 2022 and annually thereafter be known as Code Enforcement Officer Appreciation Week in the Town of Paradise. And be it further resolved that the Town Council calls upon the Town of Paradise residents to join in recognizing and expressing their appreciation for the dedication and service by the individuals who serve as our code enforcement officers. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the official seal of the town of Paradise to be affixed hereunto this 11th day of October 2022. Roy and Tony.
I'm glad you came, John.
Congratulations, ladies and gentlemen, on the job. Very well done. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, correct? You okay?
Yeah. Okay, item 1G. Elizabeth Brewster will now present for the Paradise Little League.
All right, good evening. I'm Elizabeth Brewster, and I am the president for the board of directors of Paradise Little League. First off, thank you very much for allowing me the time to come in and speak on behalf of an organization that I really, really believe in. We are seeking an endorsement from the town of Paradise because we believe that our partnership will benefit Ridge families, helping to strengthen our kids and community. We are a 100% volunteer-run 501c3 nonprofit organization, which has served our youth on the Ridge since 1953. We are a chartered member of Little League International, which annually serves over 2 million kids ages 4 to 16 around the world. Paradise Little League believes that baseball and softball should be accessible to every kid, and although we do charge reasonable registration fees, we never let an inability to pay keep a kid from playing. We offer scholarships for registration, as well as provide new equipment to kids who need it. Our mission is not just to train great athletes, but to raise great citizens. As we're all aware, the 2018 Camp Fire changed the landscape of the Ridge. In addition to the destruction of our homes and businesses, it also destroyed many of our schools, parks, and churches. Prior to the fire, Paradise Little League owned just 2 baseball fields, both at the Little League complex on Bushman Road. That's Eagleson Little League complex. We depended on PUSD and PRPD for the other 12 fields that we used for practices and games. Paradise Little League and Paradise Unified School District have had a longstanding agreement that we've had access to their fields in return for helping to maintain them, which we graciously did. It wasn't uncommon for our volunteers to spend their Saturdays in February and March on tractors, pulling weeds, leveling dirt, raking rocks, and otherwise making sure the fields were safe for play. In fact, I remember as a kid watching my dad build the 3 fields at Paradise Elementary School. Paradise Parks and Recreation Department mostly maintains their own fields at Moore Road. However, we do pay a fee to use them. But because of the collaboration of those 3 organizations, we've been able in the past to offer a robust program open to all kids 4 to 16, many of whom went on to play at the high school level and beyond. Last season, we were able to add 1 more field at Eagleson Complex to accommodate our youngest players. Those are the T-ball and farm players that are age 4 to 7. 4 to 7. However, we had to remove our batting cages to do so. And although we were granted permission to play on a few of the Paradise Unified School District fields, because of the new fencing, we didn't have access to them on weekends and evenings when our volunteers were available. We have recently sought and received endorsement from the school district and hope that PUSD and PLL can work together to improve their facilities to make them safer for our players and their students. We will also be seeking an endorsement from Paradise Parks and Recreation in hopes that we can build a similar relationship and work together to create places to play for all ages of baseball and softball players. Across the country, Little Leagues are struggling to retain players. losing many to travel ball programs and other promises of prestige. Although Little League is a world-renowned nonprofit organization, its all-volunteer approach to administration and coaching doesn't always yield the best results. But we believe that the best result is a cohesive community that invests in its youth. Having great facilities, up-to-date equipment, and relevant technology are not out of our reach so long as we work together. We also believe that every time we invest in a child, our potential returns are boundless. Kids who feel safe and valued, who feel like they are part of something great, and who feel like they have been given the tools to succeed are more likely to stay engaged with Little League. This year, actually last week, we just met with the local American Legion travel baseball program and discussed how our organizations can work together to better develop our players and offer a longer playing season to those who wish to play. Prior to the fire in 2018, Paradise Little League rostered just over 400 players, while there are just over 4,000 students enrolled in Paradise Unified Schools and a ridge population of about 40,000. Last year, we rostered about 280 players, while there were about 1,500 students enrolled and an overall population of about 17,500. This shows that roughly twice the percentage of youth are playing Little League now as compared to just before the fire. Likewise, our year-over-year registration growth was 100% from 2021 to 2022, while the town population grew approximately 35%. Even if our growth slowed to match the growth of Paradise or of the Ridge, we will exceed pre-fire registration numbers in just 2 years, or by next season. Last year, even though 6 of our 25 teams played the majority of their games in neighboring towns, our fields were bursting at the seams, having access to only 5 game-ready fields out of the 12 we had pre-fire. Without more places to play, PLL will struggle with our mission to get every kid who wants to play out on the field. And that's why I'm here tonight. I'm here to ask for an endorsement by the town of Paradise in hopes that we can work together, along with the over 70 community sponsors that we had last year. Other organizations like Paradise Unified School District, Paradise Parks and Recreation Department, the community park up in Magilla, who just recently endorsed us, working with American Legion, and we just met with the high school baseball and softball program. So we believe that if we all work together, we can create more spaces for Ridge youth to play baseball and softball. So by endorsing Paradise Little League, you'll show potential investors and other funding sources that you believe in our mission and trust that we will use our resources responsibly. Your endorsement could be the reason that other organizations say yes to supporting Paradise Little League. Do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I just want to say that I think it's truly amazing that you guys kept going even after the fire. And that says a lot for the organization, and the fact that you guys have as many kids enrolled as you do is just absolutely remarkable, and congratulations to all of you for doing that.
Yeah,
and thank you.
The only season we've missed since 1953 is 2020, and that was because of COVID. So we even played the 2019 season registering in December right after the fire. So it was a lot to pull together, but we did it.
I agree with what Rose said, and you guys give a lot of time to this. I mean, it's countless hours, and I know that. But it's worth it. I know that too. It's pretty neat. It's exciting to see the growth. Do you have a reason why there's that kind of growth? I hear that Paradise football's growing crazy too. Do you have any reason or understanding why that's happening?
I think there's a lot of reasons. One of the reasons, and I don't have any actual data to support this, it's just my best guess, but I do think that as the town rebuilds, you have possibly a younger and more resilient population moving back in, younger families who are willing to start over rather than, my grandma who's 75 moved away, and you don't want to rebuild when you're retired and comfortable, and you just want to be someplace safe and comfortable. So I think that that's part of it. I think that the other thing is, when I was growing up in Paradise, I know that I always complained about not having anything to do in this town. And I can tell by the giggles that I was not the only one that felt that way. And I think after the fire, there was even less for our families and communities to do. I do think that we have really amazing plans, and I think that we are moving at a great pace of rebuilding. But I don't see our town and our community investing in facilities for youth sports. I see our town investing in walking paths and investing in a community that might not be here anymore. And that concerns me. It concerns me. I have a 3-year-old son, right? He doesn't play Little League yet, but I'm guessing he probably will. But I don't want him growing up and looking at this beautiful, beautiful place that we live, that I chose to come back to as an adult because I missed it so much. And just think, man, I don't have anything to do here, right? I know we can hike, I know we can go to the river, and there's beautiful spaces, but I think that to grow in the capacity and in the way that we could, and that we have a very rare opportunity to do, not very many communities get to start from scratch. We'll say that with really a lot of optimism, right? And we do. And I think that we have to serve our youth. We have to make this a place for families to come and enjoy themselves. And when families, young families, are looking for places to go, you look at quality of schools, you look for recreation, you look for sports. If we don't have sports available for our younger players, I mean, that's going to be a big deterrent for
Well,
families.
I totally agree with you 100%, and I grew up in this town. I know there isn't a ton, but sports kept me focused. Sports kept me in school. It gave me life lessons, and it helped me tremendously. So I looked at Sutter. My grandson plays at Sutter, and I see their facilities. I go, all right, we need something like that. So anyway,
do.
little town of Sutter. I mean,
I haven't seen Sutter's facilities, but I bet we do need
it's
that.
pretty nice.
So my question, when you're asking us for the town to endorse Paradise Little League, exactly what does that mean?
So an endorsement for Paradise Little League would mean that you trust our mission and that you support our mission to grow. We are in the process of applying for several large grants from large funding organizations. Generally, when asking for large sums of money, people want two things. One, they don't want to be the only person giving you money, right? So if I went to you and said, hey, I need $100 for something, right? And you may or may not decide to give it to me. But if I said, hey, you know, we're going to work together and we're going to buy lunch for everyone in the room, can I get $10 from each of you so that we can buy lunch? You're more likely to contribute to that cause, knowing what it is and knowing that there's other people that support it. The other reason is because organizations want to see that stable organizations, like an incorporated town, believe in a mission, so that it's kind of like beefing up our resume, so that when we're going to ask for money from them, they're saying, okay, well, they're trusted by these other organizations, Paradise Unified School District, hopefully the Town of Paradise, Magalia Community Park, hopefully the Recreation Department, and others. We'll be reaching out to other community organizations as well to try to bring as many people into the fold as possible.
Okay. So my other question is more for the town manager. Does the town still own Estes Park, or SD, that piece of land?
I have information on that.
Okay. Yes. You know what I'm talking about? Because that's where I was going with it.
It's just very interesting that you should ask.
Well, I just thought it was a good question.
Yes. So
You know what I mean?
I didn't know if this was the appropriate time to bring it up, but I can kind of give you a rundown of what we found
Okay.
so far.
Yeah.
So it looks like in 2002, the Paradise Town Council voted to pursue final design and construction plans for a new 5-acre park located off of Berry Creek Drive near Bushman. So that's right across Berry Creek Road from
It's right
the
across
park.
the street.
It's right across the
Yeah.
street. We use it for parking. We mow it every spring and use it for parking. But it's a shame that we are so pressed for space and there's this large 5-acre lot right across the street that is not developed. So there's more to the article here, and that was in 2002. And also in 2002, I think, there were actually plans drawn up for what that park would look like. And it included walking trails down by the creek where you can't really develop, so it's topographically it's not flat. It slopes into that creek area. So there are walking paths down there, nice picnic tables, baseball field, a large open space that could actually be used for youth soccer or football. So it was a 5 acres that was very well planned for our youth. And it doesn't say, I don't have anything after this 2002 article or right afterwards that shows why it wasn't developed. But then again in 2009, Paradise Little League and Town of Paradise entered an agreement for a right of entry to that property so that we could go in and begin developing it for the purpose of creating Little League fields. So I'm not sure, I just came into office.
We're here, we have one agenda item.
Yeah.
But I'm glad you have done that research, and I would, my recommendation or suggestion would be that, that maybe that's a discussion we have on a deeper level at another point, because if we own the land and we develop it, we pay prevailing wage. If you develop it and then we gift it to you, you might have a new Little League field. I don't know, just the way my brain thinks, but
It's kind
maybe
of the
we
way
can talk
my
about it
brain
later.
thinks, too.
Yeah, it's definitely open for discussion, but just to let you know how we're going to support is on the consent calendar is the letter of support. So
Right.
Once the consent calendar, if it's approved as stated, then that letter of support will be given to Paradise Little League.
Perfect. All right, any other questions about our mission or about what we're trying to do?
Thank you.
Thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
Thanks a
It's
lot.
my pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for all your work.
Sydney?
I think you hit a home run.
Everyone upstairs. And Sydney is a player for one of our minors softball teams, and this was the first year that we've had softball back in Paradise since the fire. So
Oh, that's cool.
we're really excited to have that program back.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I know. Bribery at its finest. You get a very limited edition back.
It'll go
There'll
in
be
my
more
fridge.
discussions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Talk to the town manager.
Okay, thank you very much. Item 1H. Jim McCourt will now provide a financial update from Meter Investments via Zoom.
Good evening, everyone.
Hey,
Good evening.
And as a coach of Little League baseball and basketball myself, I'd just like to say how impressed I was with Elizabeth's presentation there and how supportive I am of youth sports in general. So well done, Elizabeth.
so how much money?
I'm sorry?
So how much money will you be donating to the Little League?
We'd be willing to have that conversation. But I am pleased to be here tonight to present on the investment portfolio of the PG&E settlement funds for the town, and also like to thank the town as well for being the first to bring us into the area back in 2020, as both the Paradise Irrigation District and the Parks and Recreation District have since followed your lead and hired us as well within the last 2 months to manage their settlement funds as well. So we're pleased to be to do our part in the area now to help restore financial sustainability to all the local entities there. So thank you very much. As I bring up the update that I'm going to talk about here, hopefully everyone can see that on the screen there. But to give you an update, both a little bit in the economy and what's going on in interest rates now, and then how we're applying that to the portfolio. I think the last time that I actually spoke with this group was back in March. which if we remember then, the Federal Reserve, which had been at a zero interest rate policy for 2 years, was about to start raising interest rates, and we knew that was likely to happen, and we talked about that in this meeting. But at that time, it was still projected to be a very slow path upward, and where they were at the time also predicting to maybe top out in the 2.5% range when they got done with this whole interest rate increasing cycle. As I'm sure many of you are aware, things have changed pretty dramatically in all financial markets over the last 6-7 months or so. As inflation has become more and more persistent in the economy, and the Fed has realized maybe they were a little bit late to the game on getting ahead of that, they have had to raise rates dramatically now, a series of rate hikes since March. They've raised 25 in March, 50 in May, and 75 at each meeting since then, to where we've now already increased the federal funds rate to a rate of 3 to 3.25% in just 6 months' time. So as you're looking at this graph here, this line here shows this rate hike cycle, and just how much quicker it has been versus any hiking cycle within the past 40 years. So if we look back just to the most recent one coming out of the financial crisis of 08-09, they started raising rates in 2015. It took them over 3 years to get up to 2.5%. We've already done 3.25 or 3% here in the last 6 months, and they're likely to continue over the remainder of this year to where rates go up to 4.5% possibly by the end of this year. But then we'll see what happens after that. The idea of what the Fed is doing is trying to slow down the economy. They are trying to put a pause in the strength of the labor market right now, to try to slow down wage inflation, to try to slow demand that's out there in the economy, and try to cool off prices. So they are intentionally trying to slow down the economy, and which most market prognosticators figure at this point will likely cause a recession at some point here in the not too distant future. And then it remains to be seen how deep or how prolonged that recession might be. A couple of the other things we're looking at this graph, over the last 40, 50 years here, this bluish line is what the Conference Board, which is a nonprofit think tank, releases as their economic indexes as leading economic indicators. So these are more forecasting the health of the U.S. economy, whereas the green line is the lagging economic indicators, which are more reactionary. And what this tells us, and what each gray bar on here is periods of recession that we've gone through over the last 50 years or so. And every time we approach the recession, you start to see these leading economic indicators start to dip a little bit. And so as we bring it to current times here, we are in that period where leading economic indicators are dipping again. So these are more manufacturing orders and housing starts and just manufacturing labor hours, even the stock market, a whole bunch of different things that go into this basket of more predictive economic indicators versus like the inflation data that we're getting on a monthly basis now, which is more generally lagging. So even though that's still running very hot and showing some significant strength in the economy from that standpoint, we are seeing plenty of other factors that indicate that it's starting to turn, which in effect is what the Federal Reserve is trying to do with raising these interest rates as fast as they are. So even though that they are raising rates right now quickly to try to slow down the economy, we expect that will take effect here within the next year or so, possibly sooner, and at some point they might have to reverse course then. Looking at how that has affected interest rates that are available in the marketplace right now, the 3 data points we have on here are the end of last year, the end of 2021, then this line shows where Treasury rates were at the end of August, and then this line is how much they even moved at the end of September, so just a month later. But overall, in the first 9 months of the year, short-term rates went basically from 0 all the way up now in the 3% range, and then even out to 5 years, which is the maximum maturity investments we can buy for the town's investment portfolio. Well, those interest rates were in the 1 to 1.2% range at the beginning of the year. Now they're up above 4% as well. So we have much higher rates available to buy for the portfolio now, which is a great thing. There's other factors that go into what's going on in the interest rate markets and in the financial markets in general. But the bottom line is that the rates that we're able to buy for the portfolio now are much, much higher. So that will have the effect of increasing your investment income going into the future over the next couple of years. And then the idea of how we manage the portfolio is to try to sustain that and stabilize those rate increases as long as possible. But another thing, as far as the predictive concept that we were talking about as well, although rates overall have generally increased in these graphs, the one thing that we see in here as well is that the curve is inverted. So the 2-year part of the interest rate curve is the highest yield available right now. And then we have about a 0.4% inversion out to 10 years. And whenever you hear about a yield curve inversion in the marketplace, that's another sign that's usually a precursor to a recession. So the market is telling us that even though that they're buying that the Fed is going to keep increasing rates for now, they see a slowing in the economy coming at some point soon, which will likely cause the Fed to have to take their foot off the gas, potentially reverse course again at some point. So we just want to be locking in these rates now while they're available to be able to buy for the portfolio. Now, what that means as far as giving you a snapshot here for what the portfolio looks like. So there's about $212 million in book value of the PG&E settlement fund portfolio. The weighted average maturity, so it's invested into several different bonds, many different bonds, and the weighted average maturity of all of those securities is just over 2 years. And that yield is now continuing to trend upward. As market rates have risen so fast, it takes a while for a fixed income portfolio to react to market rates in both directions. It reacts much slower on the way down, and it reacts slower on the way up. We are starting to see that effect of the yield of the portfolio now starting to rise as we're reinvesting into this current market environment. So while a year ago this portfolio was yielding less than 0.5%, it's now more than doubled up to 1.1 and will continue to rise further and further over the next several months. That 2.1 year weighted average maturity is just distributed, as you see on the bottom here, from overnight funds out to 5 years. And so within the next year, we'll have $50 million rolling out of the portfolio that's reinvested into higher and higher rates. To give you an example, we just had a bond mature the other day that had a yield of 0.53% on it, and it was reinvested today into a JP Morgan commercial paper investment at 4.77%. So we're flushing 0.53 out of the portfolio and getting 4.77 back into the portfolio. And so as that kind of trade continues to occur, that will have a dramatic effect on continuing to increase the projected investment income for the town going forward. You also have your asset allocation up here in the top right corner. So this just shows the different types of eligible investment classes that you are invested in. Nice diversification of the portfolio, both in compliance with California Government Code 53601, as well as the town's investment policy. And the last slide I have on here is just to show this fiscal year's investment income. So from July 1st, 2022 to June 30, 2023. The first 3 months here in the lighter shade are what has actually been received so far through the first fiscal quarter of the fiscal year. So which has been to about $270,000 received cash basis so far. But as you look forward to the projection, because we have this effect of now buying into these higher rates, and then as the coupon legs, when these actually start paying off for you, it'll get much higher throughout the last half of the year, the last 3 quarters of the year. To right now, based on the current portfolio, the investments that are in there right now, and when they're scheduled to pay cash flows, the investment income projected for this year is up more in the $1.7 million range, which is considerably above the budgeted amount that we submitted 3-4 months ago. Again, just the effect of these much higher interest rates that we're buying in the market right now. So that's good news that it will be able to not only meet, but to exceed the investment income budget going forward into this year. And then, like I said, just as the portfolio continues to get flushed out and then reinvested into this new environment, I think that trend will continue for at least the next 2-3 years at this point, and then the idea will be to lock that in after that, depending on what happens in the market going forward from there, which tough to see that crystal ball right now, but just to be able to take advantage of the rates that are available and get them in and lock them in as long as we can then. So I know that there's a lot on the agenda, so I don't want to take up too much of everyone's time here, but I'll take that off and welcome any other questions or comments anybody has about the strategy or the investment portfolio right now.
Questions?
I don't have any questions. I just, this is a great opportunity to, and you guys are doing a great job. Thank you for what you're doing. I like to get excited, but I don't want to be a skunk in a garden party, but it's going to cost us more to do stuff, so we need this extra money. So even though we're gaining, we're going to be paying it out. So it's almost like good news, bad news. But anyway, thank you for what you're doing.
You're welcome.
So just a point of clarification, in reports, supposedly the Fed is going to do another interest rate hike next week. So if what I'm hearing correctly is you're saying for the next 2 years, you think those rates are going to stay higher before we lock in? Or do you think there's going to be a big change, say, after the first of the year?
Well, I think there's a couple components to that question. The overnight rates right now are at 3 to 3.25%. That's where the Fed's target policy rate is right now. As you get into yields along the curve, market rates are more in the 4.25% range roughly right now. So the market is already pricing in the Fed to continue another 100 to 150 basis points in hikes. So the market's expecting that. So that's already what you're able to buy in the marketplace right now. So I think the market is saying that yes, throughout the next meeting's the beginning of November, then they'll have one in December. I think we're almost certainly going to see 75 basis points at the next meeting. The market's projecting another 50 after that, which will take us into that low 4% range. Beyond that, it's going to be a lot of data dependency, and we'll see if they've had the effect of actually slowing down inflation at that point. If we do see inflation start to reduce toward their 2% target, and if some of those other economic indicators are pointing towards slowdown in the economy, I think we see the Fed pause, and then depending on how bad any downturn gets in the economy is whether they actually reverse course then. Their neutral rate, where they see policy not being restrictive or accommodative, is about 2.5%. They're obviously above that now, so they're in a restrictive policy. Once that starts to make its way through the economy, slow things down to a point where they want it to be neutral, I think ideally they would like to get back down to that 2.5% range. But while these rates are available for us, to the extent we can, we also need to be able to make sure that we're providing liquidity for the town as you have operating expenses coming up, as you potentially, we talk with the treasurer frequently about whether the town's going to pre-fund and pay down any pension liabilities. So if they're going to be using any of that from these funds, we need to be able to make sure that we have liquidity on hand to do that. But if we're able to reinvest into this portfolio, we want to be able to get these rates while we can and lock them in, diversified, but over that 5-year term, so that we can maximize and stabilize this investment income going forward.
Other questions? Thank you, Jim.
You're welcome.
Good job.
Thank you.
Good job.
So item H1, campfire recovery updates. These are all written reports which are included in the agenda packet. Colette Curtis, Recovering Economic Development Director. Any questions for Colette?
Just my monthly question. How are we doing with the reimbursement for the Category 3 trees?
Yes, good evening. Thank you for the question, Councilmember Tryon. So we are in a holding pattern right now, so I don't have an update different for you from last month. So as you'll recall, we submitted a letter through Cal OES to FEMA requesting that reimbursement. That was submitted on August 11th. That is now with FEMA, and we are waiting for a response. So again, I want to reiterate that this is one path that we have to seek this reimbursement. We are very hopeful that this will bring us the reimbursement that we're seeking. If it does not, however, we have other avenues that we can pursue.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions for Colette? Thanks, Colette. So Mark Maddox, Public Works Director, Town Engineer, Infrastructure and Sewer Updates. Any questions for Mark? Okay.
Yeah. Hey, Mark. I know it's on the webpage somewhere. Two questions, actually. One is, as they finish the undergrounding on a lot of the roads, especially not the main, not Skyway, but some of the other connecting roads, how quickly can we get permanent patching done on those? Because some of those roads aren't going to be rehabbed under the FEMA money for another year or 2 or 3,
Sure.
for a while. So how quickly can we get them fixed? Because they've been in the shape they're in for months now, some of those.
Yeah, we've been pushing PG&E on this for a long time, all the way back to 2021 pre-winter, and we're having the same concerns and expressing those at our regular meetings with PG&E. They've mentioned to us they're having difficulty with their contractor and getting the purchase orders issued by PG&E to pave larger sections of the town for those jobs that have reached completion. I don't know what other tools we have to force them, but we do have our upcoming winter season starts November 1st, where we're pushing them again to permanent restore all temporary patching before that date.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's constantly talked about, and we're working to get those projects done and closed out as quickly as possible. One of the pivots we did do this year, though, is the major roads like Clark, is to do still temporary, but temporary hot mix asphalt rather than the cold mix, which stands up better on those higher speed roadways.
Yeah, well, and the reason I asked, because some of the contractors do a relatively decent job with the temporary patch. But like the current patching, temporary patching that's been put in, and it's not because they had to use whatever, 'cause, on Upper Clark, around from Wagstaff to Billy, is atrocious. I mean, it's brand new, it's already sunk, and it's just.
Yep. No, I know there's still some ongoing work there with the other
Right,
utilities, and so probably wrapping it up
If
very
they go
soon.
back and top it off or something,
Yep.
that'll be okay.
We'll definitely be watching that as we enter
Okay, the
rainy
second
season.
question is, I've had a couple of different citizens ask, on some of the main roads that we're already getting to the paving part of, are we working with PID? Have they put in all of the laterals that they need to put in? Or are they going to come back after you've redone the road and dig it up again?
Yeah, no, as we've been communicating is that we've cleared with PID the main lines. The laterals that are rebuild specific that haven't been done to date are going to come after the paving is done. Otherwise, if we wanted to wait until the rebuild was complete or until PID replaced every lateral, we wouldn't be able to deliver any of these projects.
But like we just did Skyway.
Yes.
A lot of the commercial properties aren't going to rebuild for quite some time.
Correct.
And so why in the world would they not put the lateral at least to the property line? Get it out of the roadway, I don't understand that, nor do the citizens. Like, we're going to spend $77 million repaving all our public roads, and then they're going to come in and put in a lateral a year or two from now,
Sure.
whenever that rebuild happens.
Yep.
It just seems, it doesn't make any sense to common people.
Well, I agree it's frustrating and certainly outside of our control on what PID does on their priority list, but on our side, we have established standards that require that if they do cut into a road freshly after it's paved, hopefully not within the first 3 years, as we have a permanent moratorium. Between years 3 and years 10, we have an increased trench restoration standard that requires them to pave a much wider width than the trench. So for a lateral, for example, you could see it go, possibly at 3 feet on either side of that trench, and so it'll be much less impact, and you wouldn't be able to have the type of failures you might see on a normal trenching down, 10, 15 years down the line.
Okay, and they will be required to do it to at least to the higher standard.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've had those standards since 2013.
I'm not trying to pick on them, it's just that,
No, we understand, and it's certainly a delivery. We're under a lot of pressure to deliver our projects as well, and so we're trying to move forward with that, coordinate as best as we can, knowing that perfection is really not going to be attainable.
I can't understand why they wouldn't, if we're doing this section of road, why they wouldn't say, okay, I mean, maybe they don't have the people or whatever, it just doesn't make any sense. We're tearing the road up today,
Yep.
and so whatever you got to do here, come and do. I don't know.
Yeah,
Think so.
sure.
Any other questions for Mark? Thank you, Mark. Tony Lindsay, CDD Building and Code Enforcement. Any questions for Tony?
Yeah, I have one. Hi, Tony, how you doing? So, I read your report, and on the weed abatement thing, there's a number of, I don't have the numbers right in front of me, I should make notes about this, but I noticed that there's a number of properties that are out of compliance with our, fire-safe weed stuff. How many of that, do you know the total number right now?
Well, the non-compliant parcels are about 3,500, and there's
3,500?
There's been 506 active code enforcement cases. That means that those are the citations that have properties that have received citations.
I'll make it real simple. My question is, this is always my issue, my question is, how many of that total are commercial properties?
I'll have to get you those numbers.
Okay,
I don't have them
in
divided
future
up into
reports, could you break that out? Because that's important
Okay.
to some people. I
I
mean,
can
because
certainly
when I look at that number, it's not like 500 citizens that are in violation. A lot of those are commercial properties, and that
Correct.
befuddles me that
Okay.
commercial properties can be allowed to just be overgrown. It just bothers me. Thanks, that's
Can
it.
do.
If I could just, in the future, get that number.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Tony?
I have a question, not for Tony, but for Scott, and it's the same question I asked last month. There's 15 abatement cases, civil abatement cases that have been forwarded to the town attorney that, quote, remain eligible for abatement. What's the update on them? What progress has been made since last month?
So most of them have self-abated. You should have received, if you haven't, I'll ping my paralegal to find out. You should have received, I've given her instructions, every Monday before a council meeting, you're supposed to receive a spreadsheet.
No, we did not receive
Okay.
it.
No, I didn't either.
Okay, you will get that. Every Monday before a council meeting, you are supposed to get a spreadsheet with the current status of all the cases.
Can that spreadsheet show the progress from last month to the next month?
It shows it month by month. It shows the ones that were approved at each council meeting, what the status is on each one of those, on each of those cases.
Because you handed us out a matrix last month, but I didn't understand what those things meant. It was just little notes about what was happening in who sent a letter to who or what. It didn't really tell me where we're at in the process and how much longer before those people are gone, which is what I want to know.
Okay.
And just kind of to go off what Jody's saying, they do seem to be dragging out a little, and I think it was last council meeting too, I asked, I wanted to make sure that we had one prior to the meeting, and I mean, it's really imperative that we get those.
Agreed, and I asked to have it sent, and I take full responsibility for it. I didn't catch that it didn't show up, because obviously, if you didn't get it, I didn't see it in my email either, but again, I'll put a reminder to myself to make sure it goes out. Having said that, what I'll do is this, I will send it to everybody, and then I'll contact each of you to go over it, so we can refine it, so it gives you just the information you want and need, and doesn't give you extraneous information that you don't want or care about.
Okay.
So,
Would it maybe be helpful too, because I know you have weekly calls with our town manager, for him maybe to remind you as well that.
oh no, I'll make sure, I mean, yes, we'll talk about that as well, but I'll make sure this gets done. This is a high priority for me. We have we have meetings with code enforcement as well on a regular basis. So I will get this information to you. We'll get it dialed in exactly how you want it, so it gives you the information you want and need, and not the information you don't need.
It would really be helpful to get them when we get the agenda package
Okay.
as well, which we usually get that on Wednesdays prior to. So it would be nice to have a complete agenda.
You bet.
Thank you.
No more questions for Tony? Thank you, Tony. So Kate Anderson, Business and Housing Manager, Business and Housing Updates. Any questions for Kate?
Nope.
Okay. Item 2, consent calendar. Any consent items being removed or wanting to be removed?
I move approval.
Motion by Bolin, seconded by Tryon? Yes. Thank you. Roll call vote, Vice Mayor Bolin?
Aye.
Councilmember Culleton?
Aye.
Councilmember Jones?
Aye.
Councilmember Tryon?
Aye.
And Mayor Crowder?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. Item 4, public communication. Dina, cards.
So Ward Habriel was not able to attend tonight, but he did send me an email to read aloud for him. So I am reading on behalf of Ward Habriel tonight. This comment is, first, my many thanks for the efforts to get the green waste facility open, especially to Councilman Woody Culleton. I know it took a lot of begging, negotiating, et cetera, and we desperately needed it. So thank you. Okay, and the next card is from Rich Gowans.
I just had some recent vein work, and you can see the complications from it. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it, and speaking before all of you. I have a couple items. First of all, I wasn't going to talk about it, but I appreciate your attention to the Scouts of Little League. I think, like Greg mentioned, that has had an impact not only on me over time, but a lot of young people, serving in Scouts, an assistant Scout leader, as well as a participant, even in the Little League World Series. If you ever want to watch a great movie, watch The Perfect Game. That was the only game in Little League World Series history championship that we were supposed to kill Monterrey, Mexico. And Angel Murcias from Monterrey, Mexico, who was, just recently died, was still a close friend after that many years, 1957. So the impact on youth and the investment is just something you can't overlook. First of all, I'm going to be serving again starting the 26th of October through the 8th of November at the Vote Center at the Veterans Hall. And I wanted to use this means of getting it out to the public to vote and respond. We have a number of great staff coming in there to serve the community. And I hope people will take advantage of that opportunity as well as mailing in their ballots. The second thing, or third thing, is just a thank you, not only on behalf of myself, but the neighborhood. Stopping inappropriate road work, as you know, about not only Bella Road, but Stark Lane, and the great help that especially Kevin and Scott has given, and also Greg over here. Also reviewing the Superior Court judgment that covers our area, that impacts what happens to that road in that area, not only Billy Road Extension, but Stark Lane, Center Pine, and Mountain View. So thank you for taking a look at that. Scott has got a personal copy and seeing the impact on not only the community, but us too. Also, I want to thank Mark and Ashley for their continued cooperation and assistance, the information on private roads, as well as just providing information that we can put in different periodicals. There's an article that I was fortunately able to get into the Paradise Professional Journal on private roads and sharing information with owners that they helped provide information that would be helpful for that effort. Also, on behalf of the neighborhood and those roads that I've mentioned, we just want to thank you for taking a look at not only our input as a community and a neighborhood on evacuation routes in the future, which is really critical in our area, permit guidelines in terms of authorizing things taking place on our roads or other private roads, and particularly on the Mountain View area, Stark Lane. Also, accurate road identification. There's been some issues on what roads are actually, what their names are, as well as looking at the possibility of private or public funds to help with private roads. Thank you for all those efforts and taking a look vote starting November or October 26th through the 8th. I hope to see you there at the Veterans Center. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more cards, Tina?
That was my last card.
Great. Okay. Item 6. 6A, review the draft long-term recovery plan update prepared by Urban Design Associates and provide comments. Barry.
Good evening. Let me make sure I've got something to advance with.
Don't give Barry the keyboard. He'll be here all night.
All right, let me see. Got to make sure I got this right. Okay, we do. Well, good evening, Mayor Crowder, Vice Mayor Bolin, council members. It's good to be back. I don't believe, actually, in all the times that we've had discussions, I've ever presented in council chambers. I've presented in the church and parks, the recreation center, and many other places virtually. So I'm glad that this presentation could be in person. And tonight I'm going to be just highlighting for you a few of the things that came out of the long-term recovery plan update. And I'd like to first thank, and again, for the record, I'm Barry Long from Urban Design Associates. The funders, Town of Paradise, Adventist Health, and North Valley Community Foundation. Maybe we can apply for another award for the update because it's significantly larger than the original plan, and I don't think a community's ever done an update. But what's interesting is that going back and benchmarking progress is important. You know, we do plans and then oftentimes we just say, well, that's it, we'll walk away. It's like giving the builder blueprints but never checking in to see how things went. And this process has been not only checking in, but also looking at adding some additional specifications, maybe how we're going to build out the kitchen or the bathroom, giving the town a little more direction based on what the residents say. So that's what this process has been about. So what I'm going to be reviewing this evening is benchmarking progress, highlighting just a few of the survey results, which we thought was interesting. We had a tremendous response to the survey we did. And then walking you through potential new recovery projects. This is a draft. It still needs a little bit of spit and polish on it. It's getting very close, and we expect to have the final to you next month. But we promised all of you, when we met with you, we'd bring back a draft for your consideration, not the final. That's what we're doing this evening. So the original objectives were to measure progress, educate residents and stakeholders on the recovery efforts, provide opportunities for additional resident and stakeholder input, refine the blueprint for rebuilding, and strengthen future grant applications. And in benchmarking progress, I know you do this every month, but the 3-year anniversary of the first building permit being pulled, we had approximately 2,500 applications received, 2,300 building permits issued, and about 1,500 occupancies between multifamily and single-family homes. That's remarkable, given where we've been over the last 3 years. And in updating the timeline and looking at where we are today, the odometer is just about to roll over with new occupied units. It will hopefully this year to over 2,000. So that's remarkable by the end of this year. And again, you receive these updates all the time, but just to put it in the context of rebuilding after fires, you're just doing an incredible job. I don't think we ever thought that you could be where you are today 3 years ago. One thing we did want to highlight, because this is really important to the recovery plan, as you know, on August 22nd, the town received a Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery Award from the California Department of Housing and Community Development. And this funding was listed as a potential source to cover unmet needs in many of the original recovery projects. So we speculated on how we could fund them. The award came through after the really incredible work of the town, and it's going to go a long way in supporting the rebuilding of Paradise. It really is remarkable, and it's important. So the process that we've been through, we did a survey through the town website. We got approximately 1,200 responses, which was incredible. We did a virtual community meeting, we did an in-person open house, and then tonight we're doing the update to town council. We also have had many stakeholder meetings, individual meetings, virtual meetings. It's been a long process because originally, I think we were going to do a quick summary of kind of where we were and then look for new projects. That's not really the way it turned out. What we decided is, once we got into it, is look, what the town really needs is accurate update to the existing projects and where they stand, plus the new projects added in. So we ended up with I apologize, 180-page document. But it is, I think it's really remarkable, and it'll be remarkable for other communities that look at that to see what progress you can make, and also maybe what you didn't consider originally, which residents want to talk about now, because I think there's going to be a lot of commonalities. So the long-term recovery plan needed a hook, so we're calling it Progress and New Priorities. LTRP is getting kind of old, so we gave it a new name. And the sign rebuilt is, of course, the symbol of the rebuilding of the community. This is not in the recovery plan, but we have been asked on the recovery project status. So going from 12 o'clock, 8 of the projects have been completed of the original 39. 25 we've done updates to. They're well on their way to completion. 3 were superseded by either new projects or existing projects. 5 were retired for various reasons. Happy to discuss that. And about a quarter, actually, 13 were added. So now we have 52 recovery projects in the long-term recovery plan. And we were also asked, well, what fell into what category? So we did this summary. This is not currently in the plan, but as we do finalize it, we will add it in. So this shows all the original projects and which of those categories they fell into and where they are today. The survey had 36 questions on it. Some of them were multi-part, but there were 36 total. And I don't usually do it. I actually wrote that survey myself because I think I've been most invested in following what's been going on in the community. I really cared about how the questions were worded. So if you have problems with that, I am to blame. You can address me directly on that. But we tried to do it in a way to draw out where we go from here. So we didn't ask the same kind of questions we asked originally. So one important was tell us about yourself. We really wanted to be able to sort the information by who is a current Paradise resident and was also here in 2018. That was important to us. And you can see 60% of the respondents are back in Paradise today and were here in 2018. And when you add in former Paradise residents planning to return, that got us up over 75%. So the vast majority of responses are coming from people that are invested in the community, the residents. And then you can see the rest, former folks not returning, about 10%. Other was about 8.5%, and then current Paradise residents new to Paradise since 2018, about 4.5%, and so on. But again, 1,200, almost 1,200 responses was just incredible. What are the top priorities? Well, not surprisingly, road repair. Coming up Skyway, my teeth didn't shatter this time. It's great progress.
Kind of miss it, don't you?
No, I don't miss it. I don't miss it. But I feel for the folks that are here. Additional healthcare services, this came up over and over again. Healthcare is at the top of the list. It was a priority 3 years ago. It's almost 4 years ago now. It's at the top of the list. Reducing wildfire risk. Pardon? Oh, am I?
The slide.
Yeah. Thank you, Jody. Keep me honest. So again, road repairs, additional healthcare services, and reducing wildfire risk. Those were the top 3, but there are other ones that scored highly too. What are some of the unmet healthcare needs of current residents? This was amazing, but hospital and emergency room, 90% of respondents ranked that as the top. So to not thank anybody who doesn't think that's a priority is crazy. It absolutely is. And all of these, we should tell you in the 180-page report, all of the survey responses, just like in the same format, are in the appendices in the back. So you can go through the entire survey if you'd like to. The town also studied adding an interconnected path adjacent to primary streets for daily use by pedestrians and cyclists and crisis use by emergency vehicles. Will you use this network for walking or biking? We were just curious. We're a little surprised that 60% said yes, they would use that network. I don't know if this is like a gym membership where you buy it and then you don't use it. I don't know. But it was an impressive response. Would you support the Paradise Recreation and Parks District acquiring more open space in strategic locations throughout the town to reduce wildfire risk? Almost 80% of respondents said yes. So again, a remarkably high number. Just so you know where the new recovery projects came from, and this is just a word cloud, but they came from the resident input on the surveys, they came from the public meeting, the virtual meeting, and our interviews, but most of them came from the residents themselves. And the discussion has changed because you made so much progress on different things, and we'll go through these when we get to the end and you can see what's been added. What do you see as the biggest hurdles to rebuilding housing? Almost 90% said labor and materials. I think we heard tonight, and we know from our practice, that in addition to the second one there, cost of insurance, which is a concern, is now interest rates. And I will say, if you see things slowing down here, you don't think it's only you in the housing side. We've seen actually negative home sales in many of the new communities we're working in, and land sales right now on a large scale have stopped. Paradise is still, you have a different economy here, but you cannot not be affected by that. It just affects what you can afford to build so much, and I think we heard a very accurate presentation tonight. Those headwinds are going to be with us for a while. Butte County area median income for a 4-person household is $69,000. This was done in March. The associated monthly housing cost should be $1,725 or less. What should the focus be in Paradise moving forward? And almost 80% said attainable housing, which is that 80 to 120% of AMI. There was an awful lot of attainable housing in Paradise for the campfire, but we were surprised to see that really high percentage of attainable. So we focused on that in crafting recovery plans. Do you feel that you have been taken advantage of by a contractor that worked on your property since the fire? A third of respondents said yes. Again, a high enough percentage that it's a concern, and it's something that we need to address. And I think this is the last one we pulled out. We didn't go through all 36, but would you be willing to implement fire-safe improvements to your home and property if the cost was reasonable or financial assistance was available? And over 90% of residents said yes. Fire safety still is a big discussion here in adapting and being prepared, and I think we heard that repeatedly. So now the last part of the presentation, rather than taking you through all 52 projects, what we focused on is what we've added. And I just want to go through a quick summary of those so that you and the public are aware, or that's flagged, as to what the new projects that were added to the plan are. So in the original plan, safer was the main focus. I would say most of the projects fell into that category. This time it's welcoming, which really has to do with housing. And I think as the housing rebuild has gained momentum, a lot of the focus has shifted as to what things related to housing are working and where we need to do work. Safer is still important, and then all categories from the original plan are represented. In the actual recovery plan, I don't know if your copy was a color copy, but your digital copy would have been. What we did is we took the original plan, and so as not to confuse everybody, we kept the same order of projects. What we did is we inserted the 13 new projects in, and they're on a cream-colored page. All the other pages in the document are white. At the top, there's a symbol, and this one says added because it's one of the new projects. It has a plus sign, but every project tells you if it was updated, completed, whatever it is, right up in the upper right-hand corner. And then we maintained the same format which we had before because it was pretty successful in being able to apply for grants and be used by the town. So the first new one is new insurance alternatives. I don't think that it's a secret that the rising cost of insurance is a potential existential threat to the continued rebuilding. The recovery project is to identify new insurance alternatives beyond the California Fair Plan. You were awarded a technical assistance grant administered by LISC to grapple with this and related challenges. That project is not done, but they'll be reporting out to you in February. We've met with them a number of times. Community-based insurance is one thing that they're considering. And then the IBHS prepared home standards, which you've adopted to be better prepared, are also hopefully going to work in concert with what the state insurance commissioner is doing to try to get them locked down. Are we confident? Councilmember Cullen, I can tell by your expression, not confident, but it is something that we've got to work on, because these insurance rates, it's not just Paradise, major issue as we move forward. Support for first-time home buyers. This one just said find tools to allow first-time home buyers to purchase a home. I think the good news here is that the town has good tools. So you need to continue to work with HCD on the requirement to purchase an existing home, because most of the homes here are new. They're not existing, so you know we have a challenge with that. But we also need to encourage builders to offer smaller and more affordable homes that fall below 120% of AMI. So you have the resources, good resources for first-time home buyers, but we're out of balance between inventory and what we have. And it's not easy, especially with mortgage rates and construction costs being up, but we're not building very many homes that can go down to your 750 or minimum for a home, or 1,000 square feet. We're not really building in that category right now. So this is something that needs work, but is being worked on by the town staff. Contractor accountability. As we said, approximately a third of respondents reported that they'd been taken advantage of, and the town should develop additional strategies for holding contractors accountable.
Can I just make a comment about that?
Yeah, go ahead.
In your question, you didn't differentiate between what type of a contractor?
Yeah, we
Because
did.
there's lots of different types of contractors.
Yeah, that's fair. We did not. Yep. We did not differentiate, and that would have been a good thing to have done. One thing that we found in talking to folks about this is that the CSLB should pay more frequent visits to Paradise, but maybe the bigger gap is if I go and I pull my own permit and go hire my contractor, they don't go through the same review process if a contractor goes in and pulls their permit, because they do get, if I go into the brick, there's a great checklist for what I should do, which is great. I saw it today when I was up there, but the contractor doesn't have to do that. So then it's up to the owner to make sure the contractor meets the standards. And that's something that, with education of people who come in to get a permit and don't have their contractor pull the permit, we have some work to do there. But when a third of folks say this is an issue, it's something that we need to work on.
But one of the things we run into there, Barry, is that the CLCB has come in and written cases against some of the most egregious offenders, and our local district attorney will not prosecute. So, I mean, you know, in the last 3.5 years, they've arrested one contractor that was an ex-felon, and they're still doing work in town. I mean, it's just, you know.
I think as we see
beyond our scope, that, you know, we can.
The pace of building that you've been keeping up with is remarkable, and from an outsider standpoint, I would say that has something to do with some of the, and also folks that probably haven't ever built a home are now building homes, and I'm talking about residents. It's a lot to cope with when you're putting your life back together. You're a survivor, and you have to build a home and do everything simultaneously. I can't imagine personally. But hopefully with the slowing down of construction and the market normalizing, we'll get less of this, but it needs to be addressed. Focusing on attainable housing, and this is supporting the restoration of attainable housing. So the top priority identified, this was top priorities we saw identified by residents, and owner-occupied rehab and reconstruction, and it's called Recover CA funds, are available now to deal with this. But again, the inventory is missing. So this is for sale inventory primarily between $250 and $350. So if you want to pay, if you can pay over $400 up here and you can afford your mortgage interest rate right now, you're in better shape, and that's up in the workforce category, but it's right below that. It's $250 to $350. where we have a miss. And this, again, was a really important part of housing opportunities before the fire. Manufactured home communities. So the MORE program, I believe it was rolled out this year by the state, and that should help. They have, it's MORE capitalized. They have a new program, HCD does. But I would say, just for your knowledge, we're working up in Oregon on the Alameda fire recovery. Almost all that 2 years ago that happened, so they were behind you, but they lost 1,800 manufactured home community units. So 1,800 they lost. They're almost all under reconstruction or redevelopment already. So we asked, how did you do that? What's the difference? Because Paradise is lagging that. And they said a couple things. One is state's not involved. We have local jurisdiction.
That's huge.
It's huge.
It's huge. We have local jurisdiction. And I got to be honest with you, that's a really big deal.
How did they get that?
They don't have an
They don't have
HCD
it.
overseeing.
They don't have
They
it.
have this year equivalent.
And we're threatened if we even talk to them about doing anything here, so.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, their contractor's licensing is just, it's not that difficult to get a contractor's license in Oregon.
Yeah.
Yeah, on that side, we may find they have contractor issues too with the rebuild, but that's one thing. And the other thing is, most of the home parks were able to rebuild their infrastructure primarily with the insurance proceeds. But they've also been able to decommission some of them, which you have a very difficult time doing here, decommissioning so you can do something else with it. So that was a really kind of stark for us, seeing that, and it's helping.
Are you talking about the fire in Medford?
Yeah.
In that area?
Yeah.
So mostly what was burnt there was mobile home parks.
Exactly.
So that's a whole different ballgame than what we're doing here.
It was, but you had these 36 communities which haven't come back, and that fire burned up the Bear Creek Greenway and took out about 1,800 units. So I think you lost more units in manufactured home parks than they did, but this, the struggles to try to bring it back. Our worry long-term with these is that they become, a fire hazard, or they just aren't a contributing part of the community. They've got to come back as something someday. But you don't have control over that. And, HCD is bigger than all of us, but it is a stark difference. Because the town's done a great job in adapting on so many levels. What is locally controlled here gets done, I think, is our observation. And what's not, doesn't. I think that's a factual statement unless you want to argue with me.
Yep.
That's what I've seen.
Yep.
All right. Prioritizing road reconstruction. So this one has to do with, as Paradise rebuilds, the necessary reconstruction of damaged roads has been a top priority. And this has more to do with acknowledging resident frustration and highlighting on the town's website what's being done, what's being paved when on a real-time basis, and coordinating that with the utilities so you know what to expect. And a lot of progress has been made on this. It is I think everybody knows, a major frustration. I'm going to tell you, this is why we build infrastructure in new communities before we move in the residents. And I'm just being serious about that. You do not do what you're doing in a new community. You don't have a choice. But this is the kind of nightmare you never want to have to live through, and you're all living it. And it is.
And the people have been very patient.
They have been.
And there's little offs here and there, but it's been amazing to watch people and their gratitude for what's happening.
Yeah.
So.
And you as a community are going to be experts on infrastructure when you're done, because everybody gets to see how things get underground and all the stuff you never wanted to know about. Fire safe building standards. This has to do with, I think the scouts were here earlier. This really has to do with what we like to say in scouting, be prepared. It does tie to affordable insurance, though. It is a little bit frustrating that new standards keep coming. It's hard to keep up, but one of the great things about Paradise is we know that this is a high wildfire hazard area, so we have to adapt. We have to be prepared. And you've done it on every level, and you need to do it on a community-wide level. The thermal shell of a house is the last line of defense, and hopefully we never get there again. But it is important, and you did adopt the IBHS standards, which are going to be tied to insurance rates, we believe. The town, though, is going to be presented an option to consider adoption of multifamily and community standards. Same organization is developing. We don't know what's going to be in them. But it is going to be important to keep up with fire safe building standards. They're going to continue to evolve.
It's just tough to we had to do this, we have to do this.
I know.
If we're going to move forward, but then the next slide will say, we need affordable housing.
Right, right. They seem to be running like this, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Counter to each other.
Two rams beating each other in the head. so.
Exactly. And you're right at the intersection of that, and that's what makes it so difficult. Fire breaks, I think this is a no-brainer. I'm not sure why this wasn't in the original recovery plan, but we met a couple of times with PRPD on this. They have a strategy, the community supports it, and it is just one of those adaptation things. It's only one, but it's an important one, and it needs to be added. Support for mom and pop businesses. Again, I think this to us is kind of a no-brainer. The town is currently exploring business assistance using ARPA funds, which are going to be open this December. That's kind of the new information on that. Like with the houses, we need to lower construction costs. We just can't build back commercial we just can't build it back for what it used to cost. I mean, you're at 10 times sometimes as much as what the building was worth originally. And taking out a loan and building a building that now cost X when it cost X before and having to pay that loan down, it's just not going to work economically. It just doesn't work.
The other problem with that right now, Barry, is you rebuild, especially a mom and pop business, and they were not insured for the cost to rebuild now. Not only that, but what it'll cost them to build it, it probably won't appraise for that when it's done.
Right. Exactly. And insurance is going to be more expensive, and it just piles on. But it's really the construction cost that's going to kill us there. I would say what we're finding in every recovery project we're working on is that commercial lags infrastructure, which always goes first, housing goes second, and you need those rooftops to support the mom and pops, and it goes third. I think what you're doing with the sewer long-term is going to pay dividends, and over time things will balance out, but it's going to take a while on this one, but still important to acknowledge, and hopefully the ARPA funds will help. All scales of healthcare. So this one's frustrating. We're talking about working to address what was lost in the fire, which was hospitalization and emergency room primarily, urgent and immediate care and primary care services. And what we're saying is the Paradise healthcare provider should engage in a dialogue with residents over major concerns and work to restore critical services. And we just want to be real clear here that some of these may or may not come back, but the providers feel that they've communicated pretty well with the community. But residents want, and we'll just be honest about it, an in-person public meeting similar to those held in Magalia and Concow with the providers to express their concerns. We heard that clearly, and we think that that should happen. That just needs to happen here. We need to have a dialogue about this. There's residents that are not going to come back until they know this issue is resolved, and it's really important. Blue zones. Okay, we're almost done. So Paradise is actually, well, blue zones, as you know, it's a system, buildings, well, it's a way of building that's conducive to healthier lifestyles and stronger communities. Paradise is already building back, following largely these principles. But bringing in a technical assistance team to work on certification, we believe, is premature for blue zones. It's not really designed for when you're rebuilding your community or disaster recovery. It's really a 5-year certification process when the community is all put back together. So you could seek certification when the community is put back together, but we believe you probably have enough technical assistance going on here right now that it's not the best time. But things like the second bullet point here, prioritizing walking, biking via road and trail improvements, you're doing that, and other things that are related to this. So you are building back in following many of their principles. We think it's a good program, and it should be acknowledged, but we recommend you wait until the community is more fully restored if you decide to go for certification. Walkability and bikeability. We were surprised about this one, but residents said they would like to consider extending that network beyond the trail system that's going along major roads. So the survey revealed that they would like to see ped and bike connect up into the neighborhood. Our take on this is that Paradise is a rural community. That is not appropriate everywhere. but where it is appropriate, you could look at it with road reconstruction. But we did acknowledge the residents did ask that that network be extended. And then the last one, Boy Scouts kind of got you there with this one, with beauty and ecology, though that was kind of a curveball. But it's close to my heart as an emeritus Scoutmaster and the father of Eagle Scouts. But so the town should work on new approaches to beautification and ecology given the post-fire terrain and update fire safety requirements. So, I mean, we've had a discussion with community members and with some of you about this issue. Fire safety means a different aesthetic than what we had before the fire. And we don't know exactly what it's going to look at. In fact, I have in my notes folks asking, what does that mean? What is it going to look like? How can we be fire safe and still have the beauty that we had before, or some new version of it back? And then, Councilmember Tryon, we get to what you said to the Boy Scouts, the issue of balancing ecology, bringing the pollinators back. A lot of that was wiped out by the fire, and it's not being brought back because of our fire safe approach. So we really need to find a balance point, or what the beauty is in the future, and I think that there's an opportunity for you to be a leader in this. Other communities are asking the same thing as they try to become fire safe. If we can't have trees hugging the roads that might fall into the evacuation routes, what does it look like? It's important. And we don't have a solution, but it is something that needs focus. So we're recommending that, like with some other things that you've done this with, forming an advisory committee just to explore what that might look like, balancing fire safety with the restoration of ecology. And you should have both of those sides represented on that and then report back to all of you. I think that's it for my presentation. I'm happy to have a discussion. And I would just say one last thing, because this is important. I don't want it to get lost, but we do have the privilege of working in support of you and other communities. I don't think that all of you appreciate how important it is when other communities call you and ask you about your experiences, how important it is that you take those calls and tell them, because I can't tell you how many times we've had folks say, well, we talked to the folks in Paradise and they said, or we visited Paradise and this is what we learned, or wow, there's nothing that Paradise has checked off on their list that we haven't experienced. And everybody has some smaller list than you do. This is like going to the top of the mountain and you can discuss it all. And it is really important. I think when you're here, you don't appreciate how far that goes, that sharing. You talked about public service with the Scouts, but how important that is, what you do when you do it, and you do it because you care and for service. It's really important. And I think that putting so much sort of attention into your blueprint for rebuilding the community that you've done twice now, it's important to other communities too. They look at it and they think about the things they didn't think about. A lot of communities have useless recovery plans. I hate to say that. They're just aspirational, but they don't have any, they don't have any, it's like there's no meat in the hamburger. There's just nothing behind it, but you have that. And it's been borne out by your recovery and the grant money that you've got. It's remarkable. And it's just always been a real privilege since the first time we came here and Jody said, how do you rebuild a town? Which caught me a little off guard, but and I think I said we asked the residents, but anyway. So appreciate the opportunity to work with you, again.
I think, Barry, that you've done a great job with this update. I was really interested to see what the added projects were, and I think they really fit into the gaps that we had, that we were seeing as we went along with the original plan. So thank you for the work that you put into it. The survey was great. The responses were consistent with what I'm hearing from the residents. So I really appreciate it. I have one substantive comment, though.
Yep.
In my agenda packet, it was on page 115. I don't know what page in your document that is, but it's the project for the new Civic Center.
I know it well, yep, which we had retired, just so everyone, we retired that project.
I don't agree with the retiring, and in the write-up, it says the town council decided that the existing buildings, this building and the brick, were adequate. We never took that question up, and we never decided that. If you look at this building, anyone in their right mind would say it is not adequate for our future. And so I really do not want to take that project out. I don't want to retire it. It's not a now priority. It's a lower priority. But you never know what the opportunities are in the future to maybe get a grant, and we are going to need a building different than this one.
Yeah, I apologize for that. That's misworded. And that is a fair comment. One thing I would say that we've seen is splitting development at the brick and administration here, especially as you begin to implement that CDBG DR money. This place is going to be buzzing with those projects. That is brilliant, actually. I think all communities should do that, really. I will say, though, to your point about not precluding opportunities, that's always been a controversial project, but I'll just use somebody else's example. So the city of Phoenix, it's a city of about 6,000 residents, which was affected by the Alameda fire. They are using other people's money. Their town hall did not burn. They are building a new town hall, fire, police, and a cold emergency operations center in the center of town using other money. I'm going to find out where that source is, because we're just getting started up there, and I just know they're doing it because they showed us the plans and they're very excited about it. But there's always been, and I think there's some advantages of that, but there's also been a kind of a concern here that you not spend, or there'd be no perception that general funds go to that. I mean, the community's done a great job. I mean, you're managing your money, and that's very important too. So if there were an opportunity where you could consolidate things, I mean, we'd say what we probably said before, would make the town safer if police, fire were in a hardened facility. But this has never been a place that gilded the lily either. I mean, you're amazingly resilient place, but part of it is just the residents and their attitude about things. So we'd be happy to take direction on that one, though, Councilmember Jones, and
Wasn't that part of, I mean, I don't, I just read through it briefly, quickly, but that being removed from the plan from the original time, okay, that was a plan that was hatched years ago, way pre-fire, right?
Okay.
It had been on the books for a while, been talked about. And so after the fire, whoever was here in those beginning days when you did the original plan, there weren't 1,200 responders. There weren't as many people in town.
Right, that's
There weren't
fair.
6,000
Yeah,
people,
there weren't.
8,000 people in town that had the opportunity to participate. So did that removal come out of this updated survey?
I think the five of you have different opinions about that particular recovery project, and
Oh, absolutely.
I'm sure that some council members said that needs to be removed. We should not have generalized about that. But there's a feeling that the way that it was originally presented just somehow wasn't consistent with the vision for Paradise. And there's always been a little friction about that particular project. But I think that, when you look at where you are, and I don't disagree with you about the age of your facility here, and eventually, you do have to upgrade and replace facilities. I mean, it may be the next generation that does it, not all of us.
That's true.
Can I make a suggestion?
That's true.
On the retooling maybe of that specific item, is that we could lump it into a facilities upgrade. Town hall is not the only facility that really
That's
needs
true.
to be upgraded. We still have a public works area that still needs to be rebuilt. We have a fire station that has some issues. So if we can maybe, and I forget your categories.
It would be superseded.
Superseded, yes.
Yeah, it would be
Go into that
superseded,
category.
and there actually is another recovery project about facilities, and it's called Fire Station 82 right now, but it talks about public works, it talks about, and we could have a more if you would like us to try to work with your staff, and if you...
That would be fine with me.
Would that be okay?
As I said, it's not a now priority for me at all. I just don't want to say it's not needed, which is what the language says currently.
I will take
But-
responsibility for that, too.
Yeah, because like what Kevin says, and it's on the books, I mean, Public Works Yard, you know, it's in our agenda tonight to talk about some of that. I mean, the brick is working fine, super fine. This facility, as old as it is, and especially now with the reduced staff that operates out of here, is adequate. I mean, everybody goes to brick. I mean, so this has many years of life left with maybe a little freshening. But we need a public works yard. We need Fire Station 82 needs to be, and we have land, we have everything to do that. So that's certainly, as far as town facilities, a much higher priority to the way I kind of think.
Yeah, and that's in the
You know, I
plan.
mean, so anyway.
Yeah, that one's in the plan. So we'll work on that one for you.
Great, thank you.
So just curious, on the 1,200 responses that we got, where did that rate with the new city plaza?
It didn't, and that's why we didn't really get a lot of feedback on, because there were opportunities to give us comments about things that you'd like to see kept and removed. It didn't really move the needle, I guess is the way I would say it. But I think, you know, things do wear out over time. So they do, but.
Well, and things are, there's timing. There's timing issues to some of these things too. You know, that certainly can't be a priority when we're trying to build a town. So,
Exactly, yeah. I think that's.
There is going to come a day when it is a priority and it is something we need to move forward on, and that time isn't here now. But
Nope.
I just want to say, Barry, you know, it took someone like you to come in and work with us, an outsider that has the experience you have, and I hope you know how much I appreciate you, to look at this from a different viewpoint. I mean, we're so messed up being through the fire and everything that, you know, we didn't have that perspective, and you did. And thank you for that. And thank you for coming back and doing this. I mean, it's huge. And I think a lot of our success is because we have had staff that has followed through with these projects. They have the ability, they have the desire. People are coming and working for us here that are top-notch people. I mean, it's incredible, and I think that's the huge part of our success. But it started with you coming and putting this together and giving us a direction, so thank you.
Well, thank you. I mean, that's our pleasure. But it takes a community to rebuild a community. I mean, if you can't create a vision and invite the residents to come back, all you have is a stage set, and it's just remarkable what you've accomplished.
And they've all felt like they're a part of the decision-making, and that's huge, so thanks.
Yeah, and I want to tell you, I appreciate everything that you guys did. It was just huge. And the fact that you know, we gave direction, or we all agreed to have you guys come back, because the community has changed. In those early days when we were all traumatized and trying to figure out, can it be done? How do we do it? A lot of the people that were involved in those first green and red dots at the church aren't here anymore. But the people that are here, and that's what was so important about this update, you said that other communities don't ever do a follow-up.
No.
It was huge that we did this, and I think the product you brought us is really great, and I really appreciate it. Because to Greg's point, the community is involved, and the more we can involve the community in the decision-making, and we were elected to make decisions on their behalf, but the more committees we can correct, or opportunities for input, outreach that we can create for the community to be involved, whether they have a positive comment or a negative comment. We're here because of the community. That's the only thing the fire couldn't take. Took our routine, took our homes, took our stuff, but it didn't take our community. Thanks.
Yep, you have wonderful community spirit.
So I have to say, I think we all knew it was a great long-term recovery plan.
Yeah.
But what happened at the California League of Cities and that Helen Putnam Award really cemented that all of the California League of Cities thought so too. So thank you.
Well, again, we couldn't have done, I mean, we're just here to support you. I feel, privileged. I don't know another word. I mean, we just are privileged to continue to work with you. I don't spend as much time with any other council.
Next project pro bono, or
Just
what?
to be, sure, Woody, why not?
I'll make you an honorary citizen, how's that?
I feel like that already.
So I do have a couple questions. I forgot the term, was it retired? You had medical on that list?
I think
and
we
that-
superseded that with the new,
Superseded.
the new project.
And that's not something, I mean, we're still trying to work on it.
Oh, absolutely. That's why we rolled it into the new one.
Okay.
It's superseded. It's definitely not retired. I can tell
Okay.
you that for sure.
And then for me, I guess I with my background, I'm really cautious of leading questions, and I felt like some of the questions in here were sort of leading. It's gonna, if you had the money, would you, fire harden your home?
Sure,
Well, everyone's gonna
yeah.
answer yes to that.
Yeah.
So, and then what are we extrapolating from a question like that? So, anyway, those were the only things that I sort of looked at and went,
That's fair. Yeah.
Is that going to be really helpful in the long run? But really, thank you for everything. And I remember being one of those people putting dots on a page. And I have to say, it's a silly way to look at it, but it almost felt like you were actually doing something out of the fire. Even though you were putting silly dots on a page, it just sort of felt like, okay, I can do this. I can put this dot on a page. That's part of us moving forward. So anyway, that was brilliant, actually. Just the fact that it gave those of us that were here and trying to figure things out just something to do and a place to go. And if nothing else, it provided an opportunity to see everybody that you weren't able to see because we were all just so spread out. So thank you.
It's our pleasure. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for Barry? Any cards, Dina?
No cards.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you all
Barry.
so much.
Thank you for coming.
Absolutely.
So 6B, come on up, Tony, you're going to be here a while. So this is about adopting the recommended action or alternative action for the new codes. So Tony?
Great.
No. No.
And here we go. Hold on. So we've come a long way since the Hammurabi's original building codes, right? It was built on a tablet and had for an eye and several different things on there. So here we go. Consider ordinance of the new California codes, much more vigorous. So the California Building Standards Commission is responsible for adopting the latest model codes every 3 years. The frequency of the readoption keeps codes current with the latest health and safety standards. The commission ultimately adopts and publishes selected model codes, collectively known as the California Building Standards, which is most recently published July 1st. They all came out July 1st, and they will become effective January 1st, 2023. Experience has demonstrated that losses from catastrophic fires or other natural disasters are dramatically reduced when the latest building codes are adopted and adequately enforced. This increased margin of safety is reflected in the local insurance rates by the insurance ratings by the Insurance Services Organization, ISO, which gives enhanced ratings to jurisdictions that adopts the most up-to-date construction codes. Because local climatic, geologic, and topographic factors can vary greatly and do directly affect building safety, local amendments to the California Building Standards are permitted in accordance with the Health and Safety Code. However, local jurisdictions may not adopt lesser standards than the state. It's typically been the recommendation of staff to keep modifications to a minimum to maintain conformity with other jurisdictions throughout the state. However, certain local conditions do warrant changes. Staff recommends readoption of the previously enacted local amendments carrying over the same wild and urban interface amendments that came out of the post-fire community visioning process. Although the 2022 codes entail many changes in the way construction will happen, a brief outline was given in the staff report. The only new modifications staff is proposing relates to the bringing back of a previous exemption of carports. Exempting carports, approved prefabricated carports serving residential land uses, open on 2 more sides, do not exceed 480 square foot in footprint. and are installed per the manufacturer's instructions and are located in compliance with applicable building and structure setbacks. In addition, it's a cleanup of code language in grading. Grading associated with commercial development should be tied to issuance of a building permit or associated environmental reviews and clearances. Clarifications in mining, quarrying, and excavating permits. Site plan requirements, bonding requirements, so they have discretionary bonds. We have more better regulation over, errant grading operations. Inspection requirements and rainy season precautions. Also, according to the state, California's recently adopted Assembly Bills 1236 and 970, local agencies must adopt an ordinance that creates an expedited and streamlined permitting process for electrical vehicle charging stations. As with the adoption of any new codes, the actual impact on the community and increases in construction costs will not be known with certainty until buildings are designed and construction under new regulations.
So what does that mean to expedite it?
Expedited. So as you see in the slide here.
I know what expedite means, but I mean.
Right. I mean, our typical operation at the break with a 3-week turnaround, we meet this, but other jurisdictions take months, right? I was just at a local software conference where it will take 3 months just for a rooftop solar to go.
Well, I know, but expediting is like opening soon.
Well, it says right there, 20 business days.
It gives you time frames for up to 25 charging stations. You need to have that once it's deemed complete, plan reviewed and out in 20 days for up to 25 charging stations, and then 40 days if you're going larger than 25. And that's.
So we're probably not gonna have this. I mean, it's not gonna be part of what we have to deal with, probably.
Most likely not what we are looking at and being contacted about a new charging stations up here. So we will actually see some. I know we don't have any currently. I think I've heard of one being in Miguel, a charging station for electric vehicle. But we are looking to have, I believe, 4 we are contacted about doing electrical vehicles.
Okay, thank you.
You're right.
Sorry.
So you gotta issue a permit in 20 days?
Yes, wasn't deemed complete, if it's less than 25 units, which that our normal turnaround time.
21 days.
Well, it's 20 business days. We go 3 weeks, so we're more to a 15 day.
You're doing 15 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's if the.
It's something that automatically that we do in our normal business processes, but other jurisdictions don't, and so the state's then requiring these through the assembly bills to do that.
Sorry, okay.
There you go. So, as I was saying, the actual impact in the community increase in construction costs will not be known with certainty until designed and buildings are designed and constructed under the new regulations. Staff is not currently aware of any new codes that will result in sure or significant increases in construction. However, the history and evolution of building codes has rarely, if ever, resulted in a decrease in construction costs. So,
Can you spell affordable?
Yes, right in top. To ensure the Paris Municipal Code is consistent with current state law, and it is imperative to update the municipal code to include the recent 2022 California Building Standards, and amending the previous provisions of chapters 15.1 through 15.15 of the Paris Municipal Code to adopt the 2022 Building Standards Code with facts and finding local amendments, keep the town in conformance with state regulations. Accordingly, staff recommends adopting an ordinance to adopt the 2022 edition of the Building Standards. I'm available for any questions.
So you're not suggesting to add anything, right?
So, no, we're exacting to exempt carports out right, for permitting up to, residential up to 480 square feet. We did add this section for electrical vehicle charging stations, and we cleared up language regarding the grading permits in the code.
But what we've had before, you're adding in, what we did during the fire, after the fire, we're adding that into this also.
Yeah, of course.
Do you feel the grading permit thing is, I mean, just to have a building permit, that's enough to move forward? You're okay with that? With experience with what we've had recently?
Yes, by tightening up our regulations will help us keep enforcement, and with the bonding, increasing the discretionary bonding requirements, will enable the town then to correct anything that, any kind of errant behavior that happens in the system. Kind of grading out there.
So you're good with it?
Yeah, I believe we were working with, Mark, advice from the attorney. Yeah.
I would concur that we are good with it, as it'll provide more opportunities for us to provide comments and regulate projects and eliminate projects coming in that are for commercial purposes on a standalone basis for grading without a building permit. So that won't happen anymore. We'll be able to review those as they come in, condition them, require bonding, especially if they're high risk.
And we can get into this later, but
sure,
you're good with, when someone brings in a grading plan, they're going to do for a site. Now, we look at that one picture you had there. So your people are going to be able to look at that and then determine where the septic field, present and future, is going to be, that's not going to be disturbed and everything will be fine, and you're good with handling all that part of it.
We're going to have more authority to condition and require more effort of those items before they're allowed to start grading with this change.
That's good. That's good, because what they're doing is they're destroying these properties.
Right.
They're not useful anymore. We can't do septic, leach line, or anything on them, so they've basically raped them with the dirt, and they're done for years to come. So it's just sad to watch.
Right.
If you're good with that, then I'm good with it. But
And this will stop that, correct? This will allow us to stop that before it gets to that point.
Correct.
Correct. Those help us regulate it.
But that's associated with commercial development.
No, this is residential.
Sure, I mean, it'll tie things to commercial development.
It'll
and
be
then
both.
It'll also help us regulate the grading process.
But that,
It'll be both.
it'll be both.
But it does, I was gonna say, it does say commercial on that.
Yeah, it just says associated with commercial.
That was just a part of the code that was cleaned up.
Right.
Right.
Oh, okay.
That
But it does apply to any.
Oh, yes, clarification of the mining and excavation permits, we're clarifying that. Site plan requirements, we'll have a bunch more information that's gonna be required when you're doing this, so we can look at, layouts, septic capacities, that type of thing. And inspection requirements, as well as, rainy season precautions.
So there's nothing we can do. We have to vote on it. So are we ready to vote, or do we have to?
One quick question. So mainly these are the updates that we have to do anyway, because the state has updated their plans.
Correct.
With the exception of this grading part, which is what we're putting in to clarify our grading piece.
Correct. We're being
Okay.
more restrictive in that.
Got it. Okay, that's what I needed.
Do we have a card? We don't have any cards, right?
No cards on this item.
I move approval.
Second.
Motion by Bolin, seconded by Culleton. And this is to consider waiving the first reading of Town Ordinance Number 622 and read by title only, and introduce Town Ordinance Number 622, repealing the Paradise Municipal Code chapters and making findings of facts relating to local climatic, geographical, and topographical conditions, all relating to the amendments and adoption of the 2022 California Building Standards Codes.
I thought that's what I said.
Exactly. Roll call vote. Vice Mayor Bolin?
Aye.
Councilmember Culleton?
Aye.
Councilmember Jones?
Aye.
Councilmember Tryon?
Aye.
And Mayor Crowder.
Aye.
So this is the first reading of the ordinance, and the second reading will be at the November council meeting.
And we stopped that activity that's going on.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
So item 6C, upon conclusion of the public discussion, the findings of the Transportation Master Plan Supplement Honey Run Road Analysis. Mark?
Good evening, Mayor Crowder and Council. Thank you for your time this evening. I have a presentation here for you about Honey Run Road. Honey Run Road has been historically closed since the 2018 Camp Fire, and this was due to a variety of reasons, one of which being hazard trees that the state government program needed to complete removal for, but then also we had some safety concerns as far as the roadway itself, seeing some degradation of the roadway surface and adjacent kind of slide outs away from the hillside edges, and then with those trees removed, having increased hazards relating to roadway edges that are now exposed to greater drop-offs than there would have been had there been the pre-fire trees. So we have a presentation that will cover kind of the life cycle of the issue for Honey Run Road and trying to help us get a path forward to get the roadway open. It should be noted for most of the time since the fire, the county portion has remained closed with the soft closure signs ahead, but there was a period of time where they were ready to open the roadway, but the town was not. So in our transportation master plan, we received some resident feedback where we proposed a kind of hypothetical question about what should be done with Honey Run Road, because you can understand that anytime something is closed due to safety concerns, it's quite a level of effort to certify what is safe and to get it reopened. And so we had some options to look at for the community, and in our transportation master plan kind of asked a question that said, among these options, what should we do with Honey Run Road? Should we reopen it to 2 lanes of traffic with minimum $80,000 in safety upgrades? Just trying to show that there was going to be some investment on the town's portion to add new guardrails and new paved turnouts to try and meet more standard criteria for roadway construction. Could we open the road to downhill traffic only and bikes? Should we close it altogether to motor vehicles, or have uphill only to traffic and bikes? So resoundingly, the community responded that 63% wanted the roadway open to 2 lanes, pretty much as it was pre-fire with some minor investments by the town. So with that, in the Transportation Master Plan, we were also directed as staff to coordinate with Butte County Public Works and further evaluate the costs and feasibility to reopen Honey Run Road to 2-way traffic. So with that, we were able to kind of develop some alternatives for review from the council and the community about those options to get the roadway open. There's 4 options here listed on this table that identify a 2-lane roadway, again, kind of upgrading it to a more standard roadway cross-section, that if we were going to build a new Honey Run Road, what would that cross-section look like? So having 10-foot travel lanes and 2-foot roadway shoulders here in the lower left-hand corner. Should we reopen the roadway to 1-way southbound? And you can kind of see some of the costs and benefits here between emergency traffic being served, comfort for bicycle and pedestrian traffic, the estimated construction cost just on the town's portion, and then the anticipated annual cost for maintenance. So here's the cross-section of maybe an alternative to 1-way southbound roadway only. So you have 1 lane for 10 feet of traffic, and then 6-foot kind of buffer for those bikes and pedestrians. Item 3, or alternative 3, is emergency vehicle traffic only, or emergency only traffic in the event of evacuation. Although our current evacuation plans have always historically identified Honey Run Road as not an evacuation route, but should we close it essentially, I think the better way to think of this, should we close it essentially to motorized vehicles unless there's an emergency? So that alternative 3 is shown here. And then last is alternative 4, which is just close it to motor vehicle traffic altogether, which has the lowest construction cost of $1.9 million and a lower ongoing maintenance cost. So we know as staff that we're not and the community is we're not the only project stakeholders. Certainly Butte County staff and residents in the Butte Creek drainage system as well have strong opinions about Honey Run, especially for safety and evacuation, perhaps uphill if that were required and access to Skyway was impeded. Paradise Police Department absolutely is a stakeholder and is an advocate for safe reopening and permitting events with restrictions. CAL FIRE, of course, has a preference for access in both directions, in addition for engine access if that was absolutely needed, but not recommended. In the cycling community, of course, we've heard from them pretty heavily as well, with the community event for the Wildfire, and then is on an ongoing, really asset for the community and attraction for the community to bike and ride Honey Run Road uphill. I've never done it myself, but I've driven it, and it looks quite intense. But there's some nice artwork to be seen and other items along the way. So with that, we coordinated a site visit in September last month with Butte County Public Works staff, CAL FIRE, Paradise Police, and Town of Paradise Public Works, really with two goals to kind of try and come to some sort of consensus on a path forward, and then also identify how to best support the Wildfire Ride plan for April of 2023. So it also should be noted that in our 2023 town paving plan, Honey Run Road is design ready, and we have very little to no utility coordination remaining. We're in the final, I can say with certainty from Little Grand Canyon or Honeyview Terrace westerly to the town limits, if you're following my map or my mouse. This section has no utility conflicts, and we could pave this in 2023 without issue. This section between Honeyview Terrace and Skyway, I'll need to triple check. But we do have a plan to pave Honey Run Road, and most of it is going to be paved in 2023. So this is good because it meets the community objectives and helps with the recovery, and it will help address some of the major issues that we have existing on the roadway itself. With
What is the mileage?
Paving. What's that?
What's the mileage?
That mileage is not too long. I believe it's about 1.5 miles of
Paradise.
actually centerline mile of Paradise. Yes.
From Skyway to the...
Yes.
Okay.
Maybe 2, but really not too much more than that.
Okay, thank you.
So with that, in the agenda packet, there's a little bit more detailed analysis of the options that we've presented here, but our recommendation as staff and kind of in taking all of the feedback we've received is really to try and open the road as soon as we can repave it and kind of address some of those acute safety concerns that I mentioned, like the slide outs, and maintain the road closure until we're able to do that. But also look at the 23 Wildfire Ride and permit it to proceed with special precautions in those areas where the roadway may not be safe for a traveling vehicle, but certainly for bicyclists on the route would be perfectly fine, especially if the route was narrowed for that 12-foot road section narrowed down to maybe 6 on some of those areas that have some of the sliding going away. We just really value and have heard the community about how important the Wildfire Ride is to the community, and from a tourism perspective and bringing residents into Paradise as well, and seeing our recovery and really trying to do our best to get that route reopened. Obviously, there will be a reinspection by town staff before the event, especially to assess if there's any new changes associated with winter storms that could come. But at this point, if the ride were to happen today, it's pretty safe for bikes to go through there, especially with those precautions, ensuring that we don't have vehicles on the road, as well as kind of narrowing up those the bike route sections along the corridor. So with that, you have a resolution that's in front of you for consideration to adopt to reopen Honey Run Road as a historical rural community route equivalent to other rural county roads with similar constraints and value to the community, and after repaving and establishing a 9-foot minimum paved traveled way. Again, after meeting with Butte County staff and getting their input from a public works perspective is shoot, we've got roads like this all over the county. And from our perspective, kind of from the municipality, this is our one really kind of oddball that when we try to apply kind of the highway design manual standards, the expense is going to go to an extreme level that really does not, it's not commensurate with the value of that investment and the benefit. So our hope is that our council can adopt this resolution, kind of give some direction for us to kind of open it as is, but after we pave it in 2023 with some acute kind of safety concerns addressed. So with that, I'd be glad to answer any question that the council may have. Yes?
I have a question. So if we did what you're suggesting, can you speak to what the town's liability would be? Or maybe Scott would be a better person to answer that, but I'm very concerned because we have shared publicly that we know it doesn't meet safety standards, and then we go ahead and pave it to a lesser standard. It still doesn't have those guardrails you said were needed, and we open it and someone goes off the cliff. What's our liability?
I will let Scott answer that question when you word it that way. No.
So it's an interesting question. In the vehicle code, there is an ability for a county to declare an unimproved county road, in which they can reduce the maximum weight of vehicles allowed on that road. They can reduce a lot of the requirements of the road.
But we're not a county.
We are not a county, and there is no corollary for a local public agency to do that. There's no, for a town or a city, there just isn't the same provisions. So I actually put this out for all of the city attorneys in California we have like a bulletin board and an email list, and I sent this out and I said, anybody seen anything like this? And what about liability? And one of the issues that frequently comes back is you may be able to limit your liability with signage. And of course, it's a may. You may be able to limit your liability with signage. What the typical recommendations are, you would want to say road is closed, road is closed for vehicular traffic, but you can sort of keep it open as a historic, road. You would want the speed limit to be very low on it. But that you would say, you enter at your own risk. Now, is that going to absolve you of liability? Probably not. But it is going to give you some arguments, as far as in the event something happens, what kind of defense mechanism, what kind of defenses can you raise in court to limit your liability? One of the things that they are talking about is in some of the areas, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, but in some of the areas, they are talking about putting up guardrails where appropriate. Does that mean you're going to, look, you can have liability in any road in town. You can have our attorneys arguing that you've got, design defects in some of the roads that are designed.
But here, we're knowingly opening a road that doesn't meet safety standards, and we've sort of highlighted the fact that it doesn't.
Right.
And all of that is public record.
Well, and here's the thing, it is public record, but this was open before. And so you're not increasing your liability over what you already had before. You already had this liability before.
But the road's in worse shape now than it was.
No question.
It's in a little worse shape, but it wasn't in very good shape before, trust me. No. Been up and down a few times. But I understand why the county wants it. I mean, if we had a fire back in the day, and I don't remember when it was, but it came across the bottom of the canyon and started coming right up the canyon. Well, that's one of the very few exit routes. If you have to go up the canyon to escape a fire, they need Honeyman Road as an exit. So I understand why the county really wants to see that reopened and available.
Yes.
You can sue a bologna sandwich. Sure. I mean, you can sue over anything. So, I mean, yeah, there's that risk, but
if we did,
we had it before.
Yeah, if we didn't make the improvements, right, on the 1.5 2 miles we own.
Yeah.
If I go out here, like it's 25 miles an hour right now in construction, and I come up this road at 70 miles an hour and I run into that traffic light at the corner of Pearson, I can sue the town because your traffic light, caused damage. I mean, if I drive off that road, if the road fails, then I see where we'd have liability.
Right.
If the roadway gave way, right, under my tires and I rolled down the hill, I can see where we'd be liable. But we're going to repave it, we're going to shore up the side, we're going to cut away the bank, and we're going to put in some guardrails on the areas we know are most dangerous. And it's a historic roadway, and with some kind of signage saying, pre-standards roadway,
Yeah.
historic roadway, covered, then,
But I understood your staff report to say we were not going to put all the guardrails in
Yeah,
that you
so
were
I
looking at.
was waiting for that moment to clarify that. So the proposal does not include guardrails because after looking at it, it was a matter of where do you start and where do you stop? If we would guardrail the entire town portion and then there's no guardrails for the county portion, it seemed like not a good idea to move forward. So the proposal was to pave it, shore up the roadway stability issues, and get it open.
So from my experience with Caltrans, that's where you get into the liability issue. If you know it needs guardrails, yet you don't put the guardrails in, and somebody goes over in one of those spots where you would have recommended guardrails, you're going to eat the whole thing.
the county's.
You
not-
haven't got a defense.
The county's not gonna put in guardrails, are they?
No.
So if you close it, okay, let's say that, we can't afford the liability, so let's close it. Most of the road is open, the county's got it open, they're gonna repave it, whatever money they're gonna spend. Now, and we've closed it. So what happens when somebody comes up the road?
Well,
We gotta put a gate on it? We gotta put boulders there?
yeah.
We gotta tear up the road? How do you close it?
Yeah, right now we have these signs, you can see in the photo, it says
No.
road closed, and we're aware of individuals driving it every day.
Yeah, every day.
Yeah.
I sat on a friend's porch over at the end of Valley View
Yeah.
and watched a truck pulling a trailer try to
Oh,
go up it
goodness.
and then didn't think they could make it and then spent the next, 2-3 hours trying to back out.
Oh, my God.
It was entertaining.
Wow.
So let's just say we want to reopen it two-way, redo the whole thing. It looks like you have a $6.1 million price tag on that.
That's correct, and right now in the CDBG-DR action plan, I believe we've allocated 1.1 million towards Honey Run. And this 6.1 million is the town's portion as well. And so we could build it to a new standard for the town and then see the existing condition in the county section unchanged forever.
And that's okay, because our part is handled, and actually our part's the steeper, most curved area, is it not? Or does that
I
curved
don't
area
think
go
so.
down below?
I don't think so, but.
It's further down.
Repairs.
Ours
It's
is
been a
bad.
while since I've been on it, but.
I think we're kind of middle of all that, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
I don't know where the line is.
Our curvy part is bad, but it's even worse beyond our town road, correct?
No, I would say the worst part of Honey Run is in the town's right-of-way.
Really?
It is.
Yes,
That's what I would
correct.
think.
Yep,
Well,
which
give
is.
it back to them.
I don't,
What's that?
Just give
it
that part
back?
back to them.
let's go take
What-
it a road
Sure.
trip.
One of the things that I would recommend in an effort to limit liability is to have the Board of Supervisors, if they want this reopened, to have them declare the entire road an unimproved county highway. Now, is that a perfect defense for you? No,
It's better than nothing.
but it's better than nothing.
And they're
So,
gonna open it, right, Mark?
They would like to.
county-
They've been great partners in coordinating, holding off, but again, people are driving past the sign.
Yeah.
so to finish up, if we had, another 5 million dropped in our lap, and we could redo the whole road the way it should be, is there any funding out there for it? Like, is there any grants that we haven't applied for that maybe we could, or any historical road restoration projects?
Yeah.
That are available?
So what immediately comes to mind is our CDBG-DR allocation, and certainly we're anticipating hopefully some good news on October 21st that could fund additional projects that are in our action plan through Active Transportation Program. And so we're proposing hopefully to bring back a action plan amendment in next month in November that could hopefully, if these projects are funded, it would free up additional money in our allocation that could go towards Honey Run Road. What's problematic in the project design process will be the amount of time that the roadway continues to remain closed as is. If we were to look at the $6.1 million option, the soonest that road is probably getting open is 2025.
But can't we leave it open as an evacuation route in case of a fire down in the?
Yeah, I believe it
canyon?
is right now, and that's why we've gone with the soft closure with just the signs.
But you said the road that's a town road, 2 miles, whatever it is.
Yep.
That's a town road. So that's part of the money we already have in the bank to repave, and it's on the plan to be repaved
Yes.
next year.
That's correct.
So, but if you wanted to.
If we
build
were
it-
going to combine it with a larger safety effort, we would pull that out of the 2023 project, consolidate it with an overall safety project
If
to
you go
improve
to
our
the,
portion.
if you go to the $6 million reconstruction. So if you didn't make it to that complete standard, you stabilized the roadway, you put in guardrails, you maybe didn't make 2 10-lane,
Yeah.
you made it one of those other options, that wouldn't be $6 million, would it?
No, it would. It would.
No matter what.
Yes. The two-lane option?
If you didn't make it 2 lanes each
Oh.
way, and you may, because it's not
I'm
2
sorry.
lanes beyond our part, it won't be 2 lanes. I mean, if you stabilize the road and put in guardrails where you need them and cut the bank back, so you had a.
Well, I
full,
think that's
you know,
going to be most indicative of the option 4, motor vehicle traffic prohibited, which is, again, cable railing, fencing, the guardrail here on the left. With our FEMA PA project, we would pave it and do some repairs on the hillside edges on each
So
side.
why
as
prohibit
necessary.
vehicles? If you do that, why don't you just let cars drive? That's what it is now. It's not any wider than that to begin with.
I'd like to make
Right.
a suggestion. I wanted to highlight this issue because I didn't want the council to just go with the recommendation without understanding what we're getting ourselves into. But I liked Scott's suggestion, and I'd like to suggest that we approve your recommendation, provided the county makes that declaration for the entire road, including our portion, and that you include a robust signage package that tells people they're proceeding at their own risk.
With weight limitations, length limitations. Yep.
Yes, not just
Yep.
one little sign that
Right.
somebody could miss.
And they have
Yep.
to sign on liability line.
Yeah, and
do
there's a debit card reader right there. at the
DocuSign.
entrance.
I understand the predicament that you're in, and I think we
Yep.
need to move forward, but we need to protect ourselves as best we can at the same time.
Okay. So I understand the recommendation is to continue forward, perhaps, is there consensus on continuing forward supporting the 2023 Wildfire? Is permitting that
Yes.
event with the safety precautions, and then reaching out to Butte County to coordinate an overall finding of the entire corridor between approximately Centerville Road up to Skyway as a historical community route, similar to what's been proposed tonight. And we can ask them that and report back to the council and bring this back.
Is that your motion?
Yes.
I second that.
Okay.
Quick question, though. So what are we doing with the paving? Are we going to wait for that to see how the money
We
gets
should know
out?
next week.
Yeah. So the paving package is, for 2023, is heading your way for approval in November. But these are pretty plug-and-play projects that we could take it out, put it back in.
Okay.
So I don't think that's going to hurt us. We're done with design on the paving portion. So this issue won't hurt us one way or
So
the
this
other.
is just for opening it and approving the Wildfire? Okay.
Yes.
There's a card, sorry. I take
So,
my second
yeah.
back.
Yes.
There's 2
Cards,
cards.
Dina.
The first card is from John Romelia.
Almost made it through the night without saying anything.
So close.
Yeah, one of the things, at least twice a year, we do the Rubicon Trail. It is, believe it or not, a county road. Sheriff's Department and Forest Service patrol it. They give DUIs on it, the whole 9 yards. They have a very detailed sign. Basic, because it's not a road, but it's approved as a road. The other thing that comes, 2 things that come to my mind. Number one, we need it for fire ingress and egress and evacuation ingress and egress. And the second thing, I think the people that are spending their time and their money and their donations to redo the covered bridge, we're cutting it off from one side. And I think that's something that maybe we would, in the future, like to promote as a tourist attraction. But I really think that we need to try and do, and I understand money is a major concern, but I just think we need to, I mean, those people down in the bottom, if a fire's coming up the canyon, I mean, they gotta do something. Thank you.
The next card is from Cynthia Binion.
Yes.
Well, all three of us we are residents of Honey Run Road up at the top. And so your idea about turning it all over to the county, does that mean now we would not have a, city-maintained road?
No, I didn't say turn it over to the county.
Making it an unimproved road, though, you
Well,
said the whole way.
It already is. It already is an unimproved road. What we're trying to do is get the county to pass that resolution that counties are able to pass, which may be helpful in terms of our liability. It doesn't change
So that
anything
wouldn't
about the
affect
road.
anything about how the city would still maintain it?
And own
that
it.
part of it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
That was my last card.
So Jody, your
Is that motion up?
Well, it seems like there's one additional person.
Do you want me to say the motion again?
There's,
Oh.
Just come on up, just come on
Yeah,
up.
go ahead. Yeah.
Hey, folks. Thanks for being here, guys. Appreciate you guys trying to take care of this town. I've been here about 15 years now.
Can you please state your name?
I brought two of my neighbors. My name's Kurt Claycole.
Thank you.
These two of my neighbors, so we have 6 people, so I have half my street here, all right? We had about 40 of us living there originally, which I know we're not alone in that. I'm building a house on Honey Run right now, next to my house that I'm still living in a trailer in, but we're moving in that direction. Ray's also the last house on the right, and that sign you guys had up there is his house, boom, there it is. So I live right where Little Grand Canyon comes down. If you lost your brakes, you come in my driveway. Just had Steve and the PG&E people there at our house, so Steve's been to my place. He's been there on Honey Run. I had a question for you guys, is that, have you guys recently in the last couple of weeks driven down that road yourself?
It's closed.
Good answer.
Not gonna admit it.
The police are still here.
Yeah,
No,
not admit it.
It isn't closed, guys. It hasn't been closed since the fire even. I mean, there's been signs up there and we watch people drive, move the sign out of the way and come up. Just like you guys said, if someone's coming up, you get to the top, there's nowhere to turn around. You're gonna get around whatever's in front of you. Right. So the road, you got a sign at the top, you got a sign in the middle and a sign at the bottom, and people fly by. And you can look at the police report 2 days ago where a guy drinking took off, hit my culvert, hit his culvert, wrecked his car, and stopped at the top of Honey Run. The street's really dangerous. It really is. You driven down and seen the psychedelic stuff written on the road?
Oh, I thought it was art.
I think art.
Yeah, art.
Art, right?
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of kids there and they're not doing it in the middle of the day. All right. So there's a lot of partying. A lot of people come up that road with questionable cars and questionable times of the night. So we hear a lot of it. Ray's had people run over his fence. I've had people stuck in my fence. So there's a lot that goes on it. I'm not for 100% closing that road. I really am not. And I understand the fire issue too, but if it's not done fairly well, it's a death trap. And if you have people that are trying to exit that fire and come down that street pulling a trailer like everybody's trying to leave, there's no turnaround. There's nowhere to go unless you guys plan on digging half that hill out to make a turnaround on the top. When you're going on down, there's not very many pull-offs. And even now, if you meet 2 big trucks meet, it's hard to kind of get around each other. And we have kids spraying lines that say start and racing going down the street. And then you try to mix bicycles into that. Once you make that 2 lanes with 2, forget bikes. See, there's no bikes on there because no one's riding a bike on that street anymore when there's 2 traffic. So I know you guys got a super difficult decision to try to make here. And so we want an escape route. And I believe for sure it ought to be something for the fire and the police to be able to use this road in some way, because I think it's vital for that for sure. Whether you can make it work for everyone, I'm not sure, with the expense of what it looks like it costs. We have probably 10 to 40 bikes come every day through that road right now with the condition it's in.
which is pretty remarkable for bike riding period. And I think that it has some great attraction for that. I think that's something that you guys definitely could put forth. So let's see what else I got. I think putting gates up front and bottom, it's kind of hard to say how exactly that all works. You know, how do you open and close it, not allow people to even drive cars through. But you hit on one thing, that's kind of what I wondered, if they're going to come up, you guys just can't stop people at the top. So it's got to come through if you're going to allow the bottom to be open, but the county's going to do that. So I get worried about, I still haven't seen it, but somebody coming down in a big old RV or something and start their way down there trying to get back around. It's not going to be easy. So I guess I'm mainly here for those things that you need to remember. And we have a lot of people that, I mean, when they get off of that windy stuff and we're the first little stretch you hit, they are on it because they've been driving for. A lot of people don't know what they're really on until they get into it, and then they just get on it. And same with coming down; they're flying down that hill. It's not like it's a fast ride. It's like 35 minutes to where you could drive from the top of the Skyway and get 10 minutes in the same spot at the bottom there. So it's not like it's any route. I do think it's interesting street. It's like a Lombardi. I think things could be done with it. I think it's interesting, and I'm not really voting to 100% close this thing down, but I think that it definitely takes some really deep thought to think what's going to be safe for everybody and work for everybody and be cost effective for sure.
So just
you know how it's going to go. I mean, so he says 4 million, it's going to be 6 million. He says 6 million, it's probably 8 million. I mean, it just, once you start to get in and you dig in, you start digging that road, it could be a whole different animal.
So just a quick question. If you, as residents of that area, when you look at the alternatives that are up there, what are you guys leaning towards?
I mean, I hate to just see, no traffic on it whatsoever. I don't have a problem. Of course, I live on the street. I would say shut it down, if I could vote, that would be my vote. But I don't think that's necessarily maybe not possible. Maybe number 2 could be possible. That might be going one way. But I just said, like I said, as soon as you start to put a lot of traffic on that, you are going to eliminate the bike stuff. Yep. Nobody's going to walk on the thing. I mean, it's
Thank you.
On the bottom line. So
there's never going to be a lot of traffic on it. So I said there'll never be a lot of traffic. I know you see traffic, but I mean, there's never going to be a lot of traffic. Lived here for 50 years, and there's always those people that go up and down it once in a while and bike ride's the biggest thing I think that happens on there.
But if you make it easier and more people know that's the case, okay, think about it now. We probably have, maybe 20 cars, maybe 30 cars going down there a day now. And you guys got your 3 signs up. Now, the signs are gone. What is open up to? So there's a lot more than you think. I mean, if you sat there all day long, you might be surprised. In fact, you might want to do that. You might want to put a little marker out there and let people bump go over and get a number count on what's going on right now.
So not trying to cut you off, but we went way over on our 3 minutes, so thank you.
So, council members, if I could just let me add one additional component to this. There is when unimproved county roads become into an incorporated town, when the town incorporated in was 79.
79.
There is a government code provision, 57-329, and I say that so that it's on the record. There's nothing in that subdivision that requires an unimproved county road to be brought up to city standards. The issue that you're going to face from a liability standpoint is an attorney will argue, well, if you start to pave it and you start to do things, now you need to bring it up to city standards, right? And so that's really what we're trying to mitigate against. You want to do some improvements to it to make it better, but you don't want to spend $6.1 million to bring it up to a 2-way roadway up to city standards, because it's infeasible to do that, particularly given the traffic load that is just not going to be on that road. And so I think you have some pretty good, some defenses available, particularly if the county is going to declare that road an unimproved county road. I don't think you're going to have to be required to bring it up to city standards.
Okay.
To deflect the liability, particularly since it existed when the town was incorporated. I don't think you're going to need to bring it up to what is typically called the engineered city standards. I just think I think you have enough tools in your arsenal to defend against liability.
Okay,
And-
so let me make my motion. Oh, we have another
Yes,
one.
could I just have one
Yes.
moment? Yes, my wife and I had the last two pieces of property on Honey Run Road in the town of Paradise.
Could you please state your name? Could you please state your name?
3703.
State your name, say your name.
Your
Oh,
name?
Ray Varlinsky,
Thank you.
yeah. And so we've been there for 43-plus years. So we've really observed this road. And what we have noticed with this road is that people use it as an alternative to the Skyway. So if you are overusing drugs or alcohol, you don't want to come up the Skyway, you come up Honey Run Road. So we have crashes and fences, people going off the road. Once they get past our place, because the road's narrow, they race up that hill. There are so much wildlife on that road. Deer, cats, dogs, we have to watch things carefully. It's a dangerous road. And so to leave it open, my suggestion, what I'd like to see is, yes, have it open to just beyond Honeyview Terrace, and then put some type of a structure that allows only bicyclists and pedestrians to come up the road. And then they can close it down below and have that section closed off. And if there is an emergency, when there was a campfire, my wife and I were able to get out of our home because we couldn't go up Honey Run Road. We had to go down Honey Run Road to escape. Otherwise, we would have been lost in the fire. We lost our home, we're rebuilding. One home we're living in, the other right now. So that's my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me ask one question, Mark, before you move. Mark, one question.
Oh, sure.
So, based on what Scott just told us about what the codes say, the county road beyond our town limit is not a two-lane road, is it?
No.
So we don't have, there'd be no point for us to build that. If we just stabilize what's there and repave it.
So your question is the existing county road meeting this alternative one standard?
Yeah.
Yeah, and no. No,
So there's no reason for us to build it to that standard.
unless you're trying to meet a liability definition of our portions taken care of and theirs is theirs.
No, well, again, no, I mean, what he's saying is that when a town incorporates, and part of that incorporation includes an unimproved county road, there's no requirement to bring it up to our new town standards. So this is what our new standard would be if we were gonna, so if we just repave it and stabilize it and then put new pavement on it, that portion of road, don't do anything than what we've done in the years past,
Yep.
although that never got repaved in years past.
No.
But you know what I mean? Then that would still be, that would be legal, right?
Yeah, that's the staff recommendation, essentially. And
That's a what?
that's the staff recommendation.
Okay.
Is to do that.
I just wanted to clarify that, sorry.
And I hear the concerns from the neighbors, and I feel bad for what you're saying, but again, we got to look at, there is the wildfire bike thing, that is a big thing. I mean, that is huge, and I know a lot of people that, they just love doing that. And I do know it's historical, I've probably been up it a dozen times, and it's always with people that are new to Paradise and want to see the old road up into Paradise. You know, it's one of those historical things. It's kind of fun to do, and then you're over it for about 5 years. But it is a tough one, and I feel bad. You know, you got to live there, and that you're right. When people get through that, they take off. I totally agree with you 100%.
And lastly, I'll just add, this discussion has been great, and it's kind of a good example of the how challenging the decision is going to be made. And I'd just like to point out, when we did coordinate with the Butte County Public Works team, they were really great in understanding and kind of advising their feel of their community as well, and really wanted to emphasize that if there was anything that was looked at for alternative 2, 3, or 4, there was going to be heavy opposition or feedback that we could expect from the Butte Creek drainage area and the residents there in that area. And it's actually, this issue was documented, I think, in a 2007 CNR article about the, should we or should we not close it? And the do nothing option was chosen, obviously. Yeah. So it's a really, professionally, one of the most challenging roads I've come across as far as what's the right thing to do. versus, what meets the definition
Well, I think the
of
fire
a
escape
standard.
issue is a big one too. I think it's
Yep,
just,
absolutely. Certainly the southbound only going downhill, that's not going to fly with the
No,
county.
no.
Uphill may not fly with the town residents.
No, no.
So you can see the predicament.
right.
Okay, so how about if I make a motion?
Great.
I will move the staff recommendation, provided that the county declares the entire route, all the way to Skyway as an unimproved,
Centerville to Skyway.
Centerville to Skyway as an unimproved county road.
Great.
And that the paving project that you're proposing to do include a robust signage advising people about the limitations of the road and that they're proceeding at their own risk.
Understood. Can I make one amendment? Instead of Centerville, Dina, at Merlin Lane is actually the last populated address on the road from the county side.
So Merlin.
But, just a thought, don't you think if we repave it, then people are gonna even be going faster on it?
No, trust me, it's too
Yeah.
windy.
I mean, it is really windy. I've
It
been
is
down it
windy.
a couple times, but.
And it really needs repaving.
It-
It's not
when
in
we
any
go-
condition.
When we go through some heavy rains, which we will do again someday in our future, that road just gets beat up, man. I mean, it's a tough road.
It's a mess.
I'll second if you want to do an amendment to that.
Yeah, to Merlin Lane. So we would ask the county to similarly adopt Honey Run Road between Merlin Lane and Honeyview Terrace. Sorry, I think this is important to get that right. Merlin Lane to Honeyview Terrace as an unimproved county road with a historical community route as we've identified here.
So from there up, you're going to make it into a standard road?
Yeah, it already is on our
Okay.
portion.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right, I second that.
Okay, so the change would be from Merlin Road to Honeyview Terrace.
That's correct.
Correct. All right, so motion by Jones, seconded by Boland. So are we adopting the resolution then?
With,
With,
well, that's up to the council. I think what we need to do is to get some concurrence from Butte County.
Okay.
And have them adopt their portion, and then we can adopt ours after. Does that sound okay? Yeah. Okay.
okay, all right.
Okay.
Okay, motion by Jones, seconded by Boland. Roll call vote. Vice Mayor Boland?
Aye.
Councilmember Culleton?
Aye.
Councilmember Jones?
Aye.
Councilmember Tryon?
Aye.
And Mayor Crowder?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, council.
Item 6D, consider awarding contract number 9417, the infill sidewalk project. Mark?
Yes, so I'll try and pick up the pace here this evening. So we have an agenda item on a slide for the CDBG Sidewalk Infill Award. This project was approved by the Town Council for advertisement of bids in July of 2022. It was designed by in-house staff and infills sidewalks along Skyway between Neal Road and Billy Road in areas where they currently do not exist at all, meaning they're dirt or some other hazardous condition along that route. We opened bids on October 4th, and staff is recommending that we award our contract to All American Construction of Live Oak, California, in the amount of their base bid, $456,862. We are recommending adding a 25% contingency for any unforeseen construction issues that would allow the town manager to help us execute those changes if up to that amount, if necessary. And with in-house inspection, our project will be fully funded at $600,000 with that contingency as well through the CDBG funds through our housing department, which are required to be expended by spring of 2023. And if it is awarded, we could expect construction to start probably this winter, maybe late, I'd say probably best December, January, but it'd be a winter job between the storm events. And also it would be, I want to be really clear, there will be no digging in the new asphalt. This is all behind the existing curb. And so road work will be on the shoulders. You'll see some lane closures, but this will really finish off the entire corridor to make it more accessible to our downtown, town hall, and community services. With that, I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Questions for Mark? Cards, Dina?
I have no cards on this item.
I move approval.
Second.
Motion by Jones, seconded by Bolin. Roll call vote. Vice Mayor Bolin.
Aye.
Councilmember Culleton.
Aye.
Councilmember Jones.
Aye.
Councilmember Tryon.
Aye.
And Mayor Crowder.
Aye.
Motion passes.
You're on a roll. Keep going.
Yep, I've got you.
6E.
Okay, this item is a required action item for the town of Paradise to adopt a resolution naming the town manager and their designee, in this case, the public works director as well, to help approve, execute, and implement grant agreements associated with our CDBG DR infrastructure program allocation of the $200 million. This requirement is required of all receiving entities, including the town of Paradise. We've populated the program resolution template here in your agenda packet that does identify the town manager as the primary designee to execute those agreements, or the public works director in their absence or as designated to help implement the program. So really a general requirement for us to help keep moving on those $200 million projects. Be glad to answer any questions.
Cards, Dina?
I have no cards on this item.
So moved.
Seconded.
Motion by Bolin, seconded by Tryon, to adopt resolution number 2022-72. Roll call vote. Vice Mayor Bolin.
Aye.
Councilmember Culleton.
Aye.
Councilmember Jones.
Aye.
Councilmember Tryon.
Aye.
And Mayor Crowder.
Aye.
Thank you.
6F, consider revising and improving requested budget adjustments for various repairs. Mark?
All right, thank you, Mayor Crowder. So this item before you, again, is kind of a general overview of facilities, and really a great segue earlier from the long-term recovery plan update discussion to this action item and request for a budget adjustment. To give some background, in 2017, the town of Paradise did a facilities condition survey, which had a very robust scope of inventory, including AC systems, roofing, electrical, plumbing, structural components of all of our facilities, paving, and life safety security issues. Overall, I'll summarize that whole effort really did characterize a lot of the town's facilities as okay and anticipated to reach failure status within 10 years, especially without many of the deferred maintenance projects being achieved. It actually recommended, in today's dollars, about $7 million in overall maintenance efforts between 2017 and 2028. So with that, jumping to the campfire, the town of Paradise did lose 5 structures: our Public Works Corporation yard, the Jeffords building on Black Olive Drive, our future fire station site at 5733 Pence Road, the Quonset hut at Sierra Park Drive, and then Fire Station 83 at 1250 Wagstaff, which was being leased out to Butte EMS for emergency responding services.
The Quonset hut was a loss?
It was?
Just asking.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
To clarify. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it was historical.
So, speaking of insurance, we had prepared rebuild estimates in 2 separate cycles. The most recent ones were prepared in October of 2021. The town and staff reached a verbal agreement with our insurance provider on a proposed settlement, which balanced the actual rebuilds that we are seeking and the consolidation of other proceeds, for example, the Quonset hut, to go towards enhanced efforts that the town is seeking. With that, we asked council for direction in January 2022 to settle on an agreed to amount. And then up to today, actually, insurance has been nearly entirely non-responsive since that agreement was reached in January of 2022. And in that time, the global economy has changed drastically. And so our settlement amount from January to today is 10% less valuable than it was in January. So we raised that concern to our insurance provider back in June when we finally did get some activity out of them. And they asked for more time and asked to come back to the table and have different adjusters review the same information. I made contact today and was advised that we could expect their revised rebuild estimates kind of countering ours and that was provided to me this afternoon, and staff has not had a chance to review it or make any recommendations. But in essence, what I'm trying to convey is we're not having much progress and with our insurance settlement on the building front. And it's causing critical impacts. Our corporation yard has not even started for a design and rebuild. The design build of a new Fire Station 82 has not started. Our public works equipment is aging uncovered at the old Corp Yard site on American Way, exposed to extreme heat. We've got hundreds of thousands of dollars of new equipment just baking, and even heard on one of our generators, brand new equipment where some of the plastic is already yellowing, and so on the 110-degree day in Paradise, go down to American Way and it's even hotter. It feels quite extreme. So with that, our public works team is reporting to a downtown converted home near the Paradise Police Department, away from our critical equipment and materials, and so that's a problem. For Station 82, we continue to struggle with many issues as far as deferred maintenance, in addition to having no redundant power supply during PSPS events or other power outages. And then our overall long-range planning of town facilities has really been on hold, with many cost-benefit decisions and deferred maintenance questions kind of preventing us from taking any action. Are we going to stay? Or is this a 5-year fix or a 10-year fix? Or could this be a 6-month thing? But at this point, especially most critically the Public Works Corporation Yard and Fire Station 82, I feel we're at least, if we had a settlement today to build something, we're at least 2 years out before that's occupied at best. So that's a problem. But with that, our budget did include some additional facilities items. For Fire Station 81, we had $200,000 initially estimated for a bathroom remodel and reconfiguration that would allow for multiple genders to have different spaces for locker room, showering, and changing areas. Also some dormitory reconfiguration, front lobby safety improvements, as well as Paradise Police has $1.1 million in budget for dispatch services restoration work that includes some facilities work as well. And Town Hall, we had about a $5,000 budget for minor lighting improvements here in the council chambers and some break room improvements as well. But today we're requesting additional budget increase for a variety of reasons. A few noted here. For the Fire Station 81 project, we're about ready to put this out to bid, but currently, based on some of our contractor walks and putting it out as a formal public works project due to the funding amount, we're thinking the initial budget of $200,000 might be under of what it's actually going to take to get it done. But until that project is advertised and awarded, we won't have an exact budget number. In working with Paradise Police Department, an additional $50,000 was recommended for some of their dispatch services work relating to, I believe, some electrical needs that they have at that facility. And then at Town Hall, we were seeking to add an additional $195,000 to the budget, again, to keep the minor lighting and break room improvements, but also help us onboard the increased staff in the office spaces for the great room, and I'll have some photos here in a moment. The former CDD area, including some electrical and HVAC ducting, installation of 7 windows and safety exits, public restrooms refresh, and remove and replace the northerly retaining wall along the town's property line and restabilize some of our HVAC systems, which will make more sense here in a moment. Here's this project for the retaining wall has been on the list for as long as I think I've been with the town of Paradise.
It's historical.
It is. Yeah, we should just adopt it as a historical community retaining wall. But we do. So this condition also, again, this is one of those things, it could break tomorrow. I was saying earlier, if walking underneath a ladder is bad luck, I don't know what it is to walk underneath this thing, but I did it.
Stupid.
But anyhow, we have these retaining walls leaning towards the building, and then these HVAC units cantilevered off the wall as well. So you can see kind of some of the structural integrity or lack thereof of those units. Here's the men's public restroom. Again, it gets the job done, but certainly not an inviting space. So I'll just move on. Here's our I think it speaks for itself. All right. So here's kind of the great room. And so right now, I think only about 4 employees are utilizing this space, and we're trying to ramp up to about 12 plus maybe one or two in this area. And so we're looking at constructing kind of a similar to the conference room, but a quad of offices with the auditory privacy that allows these employees to have a space to work. We're all on many different calls at any given moment that are different from one another. So having that space to be able to perform that work in an office-like setting is going to be really beneficial and allow our staff to be more productive. So with that, we published the staff report and initially indicated these additional funding sources or additional budget requests were to come from unallocated general fund reserves, and including the recent PD budget adjustments that occurred in August and September of 2022. Approximately $850,000 remains in the ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act funding, which is required to be spent by the end of 2024. So counter to what's proposed in the budget and just reviewing the numbers and trying to find creative ways to fund these projects, we would like to propose an additional $345,000 to be sourced out of that ARPA allocation, which would leave about $500,000 for additional projects that I believe there's a few for PD and fire and perhaps others that need to be allocated out of that funding source. So with that, we have some goals and next steps. If this was approved with these budget modifications here highlighted for these three items, fire, PD, and town hall, our goal would be to have functioning workspaces by the time new employees are onboarded. We could advertise the projects immediately with full award packages at the November 7th council meeting. And at that time, you're going to have a full quarterly budget update as well by the finance director. And at that same time, we would know those actual construction costs that help us in that endeavor. So with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions the council may have on this item.
I got one. So from your presentation there, from the first thing you've got in here, it says that you want us to take that well, no, that's a new, what are those funds, those ARPA funds?
So there's approximately $850,000 in ARPA funding that has not been allocated in our budgeting process
What
yet.
is that fund?
It's American Rescue Plan funds that were allocated from the federal government during the COVID.
Okay, that's not though, wasn't this originally like looking to take it from a budget adjustment and take it from the money we got?
Right. So the initial staff report identified, we didn't consider ARPA as a potential funding source.
Okay.
And so with this verbal recommendation and working with the town manager and the finance directors, with the additional of $850,000 of that ARPA funding not allocated in some competing priorities as well, I believe there's room for everyone and to do this project in addition to ones that have not been budgeted.
Okay, because that was, one of my concerns was I agree we need to do all these things, but it seems like we pass a budget in July, and then every month we're making adjustments, and we're saying, oh, we need to take some more money from this pot or that pot, and I don't have a problem with that if these are real needs and all, but I know I was scolded one time for referring to that pot of money as kind of being it's a reserve. And the numbers that we look at in our long-term plan for all of those funds that we got from PG&E, we're supposedly going to have 50 some odd, although the news tonight from the investors sounded really great, but we're going to have like $55 million at the end of the 25 years. And so every time we're taking every month or two or three, and we're taking money out of that pot, I'm just concerned down the road what happens, because there's other things like our unfunded liability and some of the other things that might become a priority to us. And so that's one of my concerns when we get these almost monthly, oops, we need some more money kind of thing, and it's not a real critical need. So I'm excited for two things. One, that our investment advisors are telling us things are looking good and we're going to make a little money right now. But the other thing is that you found another place to take the money from to do these things, because otherwise I would have to want to punt until next month when we get the quarterly budget review. Because that's the thing is we can justify something in the moment and, oh yeah, well the money's here and we can do that. But what does that mean 3 years from now? What does that do to the end game, but I appreciate what you've come up with, so thanks.
Sure. Yep.
I share Woody's concern. It seems like every month since we adopted the budget, there's something that's over budget because of the economy. And so we're allocating additional general fund reserves. And I don't feel like I know the big picture anymore. So I'm really looking forward to the quarterly update next month. And I'm hoping, Ross, that you'll include something that will show us that we have sufficient money to cover overages that come to us every month between now and June. Not just what we've done so far, but we should anticipate that everything is going to come in higher than we thought it was going to come in. So I'm glad you found another way to fund this, because it was giving me heartburn too.
I understand.
Thank you.
Yep.
So I understand like the fire station and where that's coming from and how we got there. Paradise, the police department, I understand where the 50,000 came from and why that happened the way it did. Do we actually have, like, where did you arrive at the amount of 195,000 for town hall?
Oh, sure. So we had some informal quotes and did some job walks with contractors that would, give us quotes on the office workspace, and we've done some other estimates for like the bathroom refreshes, just trying to probably $25,000 for the bathroom refreshes. Got some quotes on the windows, again, that could be used as an emergency exit of those office spaces as well. So between the kind of informal verbal conversations with some of these contractors, get an idea of a ballpark. Again, then we put it out to bid and be able to see the full number before a decision was made to award it.
Okay. I guess I would just be more comfortable with more information on that. Like
Certainly,
what the RFP
yeah.
looks like and things like that.
So one of the questions I had to talk to the manager about when I saw this agenda item, and the picture you showed of the alleyway where all those air conditioners, and I've been in the offices.
I'm sorry, Councilmember Culleton, and I should mention too, the retaining wall, which is a significant portion, about 50,000, was from an actual bid price that we paid for retaining walls on the Ponderosa Elementary job. So the numbers aren't just coming out of thin air. They're checked with contractors and based on what the town has paid elsewhere. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, so and part of that thing, we had a lot of cubicles in there when everybody was located there. I guess we sold them or gave them away or something. But the window thing, I have I have a question about. You want to put these windows in, and the thing is, as an escape route, what are you going to escape to underneath one of those air conditioners? There's not room to. Aesthetically for light or airflow. I mean, if it's ventilation, then we need to upgrade the air conditioning system. Makes sense. I just don't see windows as being emergency exits out onto any side of that side of the building.
Yes.
Maybe out the back.
Certainly, I would just say that in an active shooter situation, a window is going to be instrumental, especially in some of these offices that only have one door in and no way out.
Well, that's what you have in a bath or in a bedroom. You have exit out, your egress is out your window. That's where
when you're egressing out to a brick wall, or there's nothing where you're egressing out
there's
to
always something.
in an active shooter situation. So give everybody a gun. It's cheaper.
Yeah, and I just can't emphasize enough too. I know a window with fresh air, in light of COVID, and it's not necessarily a luxury. It's really important to the staff that does the work, and yeah.
But you're going to bring back bids for us next month.
Absolutely.
And we're going to look at that, and we're not voting to do it, we're voting to look at the bids next month.
And you found the money someplace else, so.
I'm not wanting inviting bathrooms, I don't want an inviting bathroom, it just doesn't sound good to me.
No, I'm not looking for an inviting bathroom.
I would like to make a motion that we accept this, and then we'll get the bids next month.
Can I make one comment? Not about the work that you want to do, but about the insurance thing. Seems to me that 4 years is long enough for us to fiddle around with them. and maybe we need the help of an attorney.
Are we still insured with those people?
What's that? I'll have to bring back the lease it didn't make on. Yeah.
Excuse me, Kevin, are we still insured with that insurance company?
Yeah.
It's a complicated thing. So you have a pooled insurance that has limits to their liability that then they go into a excess carriers. Those excess carriers hire a individual to cover their exposure and their losses. That is who we're dealing with, is their person that they've hired. We are not the only one that's having frustration with this. He is covering all of the pooled insurers in Paradise. So he's dealing with PID, he's dealing with Parks and Rec, and he's dealing with us. I believe he might even.
Can we go get a new insurance company
that it doesn't
going forward?
It doesn't really work that way. It's the excess carriers who are hiring this
understand.
guy.
That's what I'm
This is not our
because-
insurance carrier that
Okay.
we're dealing with. Our insurance carrier that we're dealing with is actually very responsive. They met their limits very quickly. It's the reinsurers, exactly. So, and I agree with you.
My comment is just that I think it's time to get more aggressive, and you have my support to do that. I don't know about the rest of the
Do you want
council.
to just update them on the lease or no?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and while we're still in this temporary situation, we're looking at all options for specifically Public Works. And we've been in discussions with Mr. Horning's agents, who owns the former, was it Waste Management facility? Yes, next door to the Corporation Yard. I can bring it up here on Google Maps.
The one we talked about before.
Yes,
The
we
one we were
did
gonna
talk about it
trade.
quite a lot, and so we're looking to see if we could execute some sort of temporary lease, maybe on the scale of 2 to 3 years, that would bridge us. And let me get the satellite view here. So to lease out this structure as well, which would allow us to, you can see all of this equipment just baking. We could store a lot of that, if not all of it, indoors in some of these larger garages. And depending on some of the inspections that we would need to do, is maybe bring Public Works back into this professional office space where they report to one location. Their equipment is here in the garage, and their materials are here at the former Corp Yard site. And so we've had some good progress working with the owner and their agents, and interest in allowing the town to execute a lease. And while it was intended to add to the agenda item as far as an action tonight, it's not on the agenda, so I will bring this one back as well in November. And by that time, we'll hopefully have some rates that we would look at for that long-term lease, and confirmation that these temporary, what's that, ALE? No, what's the temporary living? ALE?
ALE.
Yeah, that these would still be covered expenses under our insurance policy. Because we still do not have that permanent solution finalized. So more to come on this as well. So we'll bring back the potential awards with the bids and a potential lease agreement for this structure as well for Public Works.
And bring up to him, maybe he would do the agreement we had set with him before?
The pre-fire agreement?
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Maybe he
free-
would do that.
The
And
free
then we
land
would have
swap?
not a problem having our
Yeah.
building for Public Works.
Yeah, we'll try.
Good luck.
Yes,
Good luck.
thank you.
Yeah,
And I have a good connection with him.
yeah, right. All right, my motion still
Thank you.
stands.
Second.
Motion by Bolin, seconded by, I have no cards. Thank you. Roll call vote, Vice Mayor Bolin?
Aye.
Councilmember Culleton?
Aye.
Councilmember Jones?
Aye.
Councilmember Tryon?
Aye.
And Mayor Crowder?
Aye.
Thank you.
6G, consider revising and approving requested budget adjustments for various repairs and improvements for, oh, I'm sorry, same one.
A little faster this time.
It's
Council,
6H.
okay, accepting contract number 9418 for the Stearns Road Dry Creek Culvert. Mark.
All right, last one, 5 of 5. Okay, so council declared an emergency for culvert failure along Stearns Road at Dry Creek. This is the section of Stearns that's between Pearson Road and DeMille. The culvert failure created this void in the roadway, and we had to close the roadway, and the emergency was declared because of the fire evacuation concerns, as well as a threat to the public if the roadway did collapse. So with that, we sought, after the emergency was declared, we sought bids and hired Visinoni Brothers to replace the 72-inch metal pipe with reinforced concrete pipe. Material delays prevented construction from starting until mid-August. The work was complete in mid-September. Our final cost was $157,776.53. Sorry, I think I'm missing a zero there. No. I'm sorry. No, I have a problem here. Hold on. I'll make it right. No. Here we go. It's fixed.
Nothing like on the fly.
Okay. $157,776. I'm like making up numbers as we go. And so tonight we're asking council to adopt a resolution closing the emergency as the emergency has been fully mitigated. Here's a picture of the pipe during construction and the replacement. One of the things getting into this type of work is the unknown. And, was this really an emergency? And was this a threat to the public? And after excavating this out, it absolutely was. And so I'm really grateful for the approach. And because what happened was this culvert rusted out at the bottom in this middle area, and the water just migrated along the entire pipeline alignment and started just eroding and washing away the roadway structure until it reached the top. So here's a during construction picture, and this is resiliency in action, upgrading from that CMP pipe to this RCP. It does come at additional cost, but this puppy won't have to be touched for decades, which is great. So here's the final look, and we're so grateful for Visinoni. They were so great as far as getting the work done, as well as being fair and agreed to do the project on a time and materials basis. And we were originally budgeting about $200K, so they came in at $157 based on actual costs. So, yes. So really appreciate their team and great work. And that's the end of my report. And glad to answer any questions.
Any cards?
I do. I get to read Ward Habriel's comment on this one. The repair replacement of the culvert under Stearns at Dry Creek. Wow, really great action decisions and results. Mark and staff, mega kudos to all of you.
Oh, thanks, Ward.
I move approval.
Second.
Okay, who was second?
Jody.
Motion by Bolin, second by Jones to adopt resolution number 2022-73. Roll call vote, Vice Mayor Bolin.
Tell them good job for us, too. Mark.
You see it? Okay.
Mark.
Oh, yes.
Tell them good job for us.
Oh, I will. Thank you.
Yes, aye, yes.
Councilmember Culleton.
Aye.
Councilmember Jones.
Aye.
Councilmember Tryon.
Aye.
And Mayor Crowder.
Aye.
Thank you.
So 6H, consider approving amendment to agreement between the Town of Paradise and P31. Colette.
Good evening, Council. I have just one slide for you. It should be a fairly brief discussion. So you will recall, I came to you last month and asked for an increase to the not-to-exceed amount for the tree removal program because we received such an overwhelming response to our enrollment for Phase 1, which is the assessment portion. We were tracking at that time that we were likely to get very near to or exceed the amount that we had budgeted, so we asked for additional funds. You granted that, and we have exceeded that. So this enrollment closed on September 30th. We did accept applications all the way to the end, not knowing exactly where we would land with the budget. We did let those individuals know who applied to the program that we may have to not assess their property if we did exceed that budget amount. And so we are here tonight asking for your direction in how to move forward with this budget. So as of September 30th, we received 582 applications for properties to enroll in this program. It's a total of 1,083 acres. So the total that would be needed to assess all of the enrolled properties is $739,719.18. That does exceed the increased not to exceed amount of $650,000 that you agreed to in September. So if we were to stop and just stick to that $650,000, we would not be able to assess about 82 of those 582 properties. So we would have to cut it off at about 500. And we would have to notify those 82 properties that they were not part of the program. They would not be able to have their trees removed through the program. We did look at what it would take to go ahead and move forward and still assess these these properties, and that would take about $90,000 to do that. Now, we did also look into whether there will be sufficient funds in Phase 2 if we were to assess all of the properties that enrolled in the program, and we determined there are sufficient funds to do that. I do also want to mention that any funds that are not used, and of course in any phase, but especially in Phase 2, any funds that are not used would just go back to FEMA. We can't use them for any other purpose. There's about $8 million that have been, that are applied for. They are not officially approved yet, but that have been applied for felling in Phase 2. And we estimate if we were just to fell the trees of the 500 properties, not the additional properties that would require an increase of the not to exceed amount for the assessment, that we would only use about $5 million. So there would be additional funds to do the rest of the properties. We would also be leveraging potentially $90,000 for an additional $3 million in removal of trees. So this is something for council to consider and how we want to move forward. I also want to mention this $90,000 is a kind of a worst case scenario. We are working with our contractor. We are working with some local organizations to reduce what that cost would be to us. We are also working within the budget to see if there are additional savings that we can move within the FEMA grant to cover this. So our estimate is that our actual cost would likely be between $10,000 and $40,000. However, since we can't guarantee that at this time, we would ask to increase the total not to exceed to $90,000 just to cover that. But again, that really is a worst case scenario. We may be able to cover all of this within the budget. We just don't quite know yet. But we're looking for your direction now so that if we needed to notify these property owners that they will not be part of the program, we would want to do that. We would want to do that now.
So money is not used in this part of the program, can we move to the second part of the program?
No, we cannot.
So if we allocate it here and it's not used, we lose it?
Well, we wouldn't be in that position because we already are going to expend all of the funds in this portion of the program.
The 650, but I mean additional
Yes.
90.
So we don't pay that out. So it is on a reimbursement basis. So if we increase the not to exceed by 90,000, that just means we could spend up to that. But as we are going through and assessing the properties, that's when we request the reimbursement.
Okay.
So it's really just to cover us to make sure we're able to assess the properties. If we find it only took us $10,000 to assess, we would never ask for that additional $80,000.
And if we go to cutting trees and we expend all the monies and we only have 520 of them done, we stop right there?
Yes, we would have to do that unless there was some other action taken, unless we had some other funding source to go to. We don't expect that will be the case for a couple
Right.
of reasons. One of the biggest reasons is when this application was submitted, the cost of tree removal was estimated to be quite a bit higher than it's turning out to be right now. Also looking at many of the assessments that are being done, there are not a lot of highly technical tree removals that would need to be done. Many of them are pretty standard and would not be high cost. And so our estimate would be we would have plenty of funds to remove all of the trees that were assessed, even if we did all of the applications that we've received to date.
Thank you.
And we could also take this money, the 90,000, out of the ARPA funds if we needed to, instead of putting ourselves in the use it or lose it.
Potentially, we could. Yes, that is a source that is identified as a possibility to be used. And again, we would really only go to ARPA funds or to the general funds if we were unable to cover it within the existing HMGP or FEMA grant budget or within these other avenues that we're looking to cover through some of our local organizations. So it's really a last resort, but we wanted council guidance on how to move forward with that if that was your desire to include all of these properties that applied or not.
So the $650,000 is all grant money
Yes.
so far?
Yes.
But if we add another $90,000 to it, we don't know where that money will come from?
So that would be our, so that would be our money. Anything additional to the $650,000 would be our money, unless we're able to find some additional money.
So it wouldn't be, the grant money's expended at $650,000?
Yes, that is the current not to exceed amount.
For the assessment process?
Yes, correct.
And the contractor we've hired do you have a fixed price for a tree assessment, right?
That is correct, yeah, per
Okay.
parcel size, so that's
So it
fixed.
might be 10,000 or it might be 40,000, but not to exceed 90,000, which could come out of some other funds that aren't the general fund? like the
Correct, you can come out of the
American
ARPA funds, right.
Otherwise, if that doesn't work, then it would have to come out of our general fund.
That is correct, if that was the
Okay.
course we were taking,
And
yes.
you just want to know if we'll approve that so that you can assess those other 82 properties.
Correct. And so if that is what council decides to do tonight, we would continue to assess those properties. And then next month, we would come back with an update to let you know what the actual cost was of that. And that would be part of the budget update in how much actually would be needed to come out of ARPA funds or the general fund up to that 90,000.
Would it make sense on a future project to anticipate the money we have, the cost of the activity, be it assessment or removal, and then say, okay, we can accept 400 applications. And then if we find out that we can do more or something, then we can open it back up again. Is that a possibility on a future project?
Yes, there's
Okay.
many different ways we could do that. This is challenging because different property sizes have different costs, and it was unknown to us what size of properties would apply because it's a voluntary program. So there were a lot of unknowns going into it.
And you're also going to go back and edit or audit, for lack of a better word, what's been done so far to see if there's any cost adjustments and cost savings we have in there?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, we are trying to use every single dollar of this.
Colette, would it cause a problem to punt this to next month so we could see the budget update and where the money's coming from and you would know better whether you got other savings?
Right. The only issue with that, we would not move forward on the assessment of these about 82 properties. So it might put us back, maybe a week or two on those. And then the other issue would be just notification of those properties and holding off, kind of leaving them hanging a little bit, whether they're part of the project
I think our
project or
goal
not.
is to get these trees out. And I understand that, and I am disappointed that we can't get it all done, but I'm also excited the fact that more people signed up. I mean,
Exactly.
that's what we want. The whole goal is to get the trees out of this town and get the fire hazard down. So, I don't know, I'm excited that many signed up, so.
Yeah, I am too. And it sounds like from what Ross nodded his head that the ARPA funds are available for this and that's not general fund money.
Was that a
And so-
nod?
It's a
Oh,
yes.
okay.
No, he
They are
nodded.
unallocated funds.
And so, I tend to agree with you. We gotta, that's what's gonna bring our insurance down, it's gonna make our citizens more safe. It's just, there's, everything about it's a good money, and it's not general fund money to begin with, so, it's kind of a good deal. I wanna congratulate both all the work you've done and Brian. You guys have done a great job, and keep it up.
If there's no cards, I'll move to approve.
Tina, no cards?
I have no cards.
Move to approve.
Second. Go ahead.
Second.
Woody, okay. Motion by Tryon, seconded by Culleton. Roll call vote, Vice Mayor Boland.
Aye.
Councilmember Culleton.
Aye.
Councilmember Jones.
Aye.
Councilmember Tryon.
Aye.
And Mayor Crowder.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay. Item 7A, there are no council-initiated agenda items, so 7B, council reports on committee representation. Greg?
Went to everything, nothing to report that you guys would care about, so.
Jody?
I went to everything. The only thing to report about is today we had a solid waste committee meeting. Councilmember Tryon and myself were present there. The green waste yard is open Fridays and Saturdays, and they're working very hard on, we're in the process of revamping the franchise agreement. And they're working very hard on opening the buyback center pretty soon. We're looking to hopefully see that happen first of the year. And we got some grant money to open the HHW thing, and as soon as we can coordinate with the county personnel that do that, we'll be able to open that up on some kind of occasionally, and that'll be a good thing. That's it.
Okay. Woody gave most of mine. Councilmember Colton and I have been meeting with, in our WS, I don't know why I keep doing it wrong. We've been meeting with them for about the last 6 months, working out an agreement for a green waste yard. It opened October 7th. They wanted kind of a soft opening. They'll be open Friday and Saturday from 9 to 3. It's a $20 minimum, and it's $16 per yard after the first 2 yards. And they're working on, like you said, the recycling and hazardous waste. We're hoping to have that open by the first of the year, sort of standby on that. And then I also attended the Fire Safe Council check-in. And then we had a meeting with Wheeler Brader on taking the Tier 4 trees. So that's it.
How'd that go?
We're still working on it. It was just a preliminary meeting. But it was positive.
Good word.
So I had the normal meetings and everything. A few things that were really neat. I worked our town booth at the Johnny Appleseed Day. I think it was the biggest Johnny Appleseed Day I've ever seen. Huge attendance, really a successful event. Swearing in of a new lateral PD officer a week ago Monday, which was great to see. Good job, Chief. I attended the California Real Estate Appraisers Convention in South Lake Tahoe. I was asked to come and give a presentation on our fire and the effects of the fire on our real estate. And one of the things that I was asked by our local real estate board was to talk about the problems after the fire with appraisals because there were no comps. So I relayed that. It was a really positive meeting. A lot of those appraisers have been here appraising, and hopefully that will help something. And that was my month. So. Any future agenda items?
Yes. I want to talk about forming an art commission at a future meeting.
Honey Run Road?
Pardon me?
Oh, no.
Well, no, but to that idea is like public art, and stuff like, yeah. I think we should become a destination for public art. The murals that are going on around town, let's encourage that. Like the thing that came up about butterflies and all that stuff. If we can't plant trees and stuff, well, a lot of, especially communities, public art is huge, and it's an attraction. So if we make an art commission, maybe we can look into doing that. They can meet at Honey Run Road.
Perfect.
Okay. Item 8A, Town Manager Report.
Yep, and I'll just make it quick. Most of the things that we've been doing all month, you heard a lot of it today. This was a pretty meaty agenda, and I appreciate the council, taking the time to really hear everything that's going on. We have a lot going on, and it's a lot of support that's needed, and we really appreciate all the support that you're giving staff and to really get our job done. So. I did attend a community resiliency kind of collaboration with the town and what's happening with our resiliency grant through the Bay Area Council with looking at insurance and trying to bring insurance back. There's quite a few heavy players in the insurance market that are on our side, but there's also a lot of heavy players on the Paradise Parks and Rec side too. They're looking at that wildfire buffer zone. So we're actually merging together, which is really nice to see, to really figure out how we can bring both of those studies into one and really now focusing on funding. So there's quite a bit of this BRIC grant out there through Cal OES and the hazard mitigation side of things for mitigation. And we're looking at coming together as one to really kind of focus on bringing that BRIC funding back for that buffer zone type of environment. but also looking internally too at maybe somehow we can integrate some of that internally in the town also. So really
So you're
heavy
talking about
players
you're
now
about
talking to each other.
You're talking about the buffer zone
Yep.
around town. So as they're doing that, are they looking also at maintaining that? I mean,
Yes.
you can do it one time, but
Yeah, and there's a lot of really good discussion about maintenance behind it.
Good.
Some of it is a little bit difficult to talk about because you're talking about maybe a tax or some type of funding that's coming in from that standpoint. But then there's also look at long-term grants and different things like that. The other thought that we have looked at too, it's really alternative, is the flumes from the PG&E side of things, and trying to maybe work together with them to figure out, because there is going to be, I think, a need at one point to redo that flume section one way or another. So how do we maybe integrate that back into it too, and then create the maintenance behind it on the flume side of things also? So really, I hate to say it's on the ground level, but I think the science is there now to really now focus on the production of something, so.
Insurance companies ought to pay for it.
Didn't the folks along the flumes get a settlement?
No.
Because the district attorney took them to court.
There's $5 million that was set aside that was supposed to help repair the flumes, but it has not come to fruition at this point in time.
And the money has not been used at this point.
There's been some studies around. I don't know how much of it's left, but I don't think it's all been expended, so. I know. Talked about Mr. Cooper is our newest employee, so if you see him out there, say hello. Really a great person to bring up. His family lives up here, and he comes with an immense experience to our PD, so just another great recruit. And then about 6 of us, I believe, were down in Butte County at the Fire Academy last week for ICS 400 training. So we're all trained up on our incident command and area of command and all that good stuff. But really good class and good collaboration. And one thing you realize is, we're pretty prepared when it comes to some of this stuff that comes our way. And so it was a good training and well worth the time. With that, I'll answer any questions.
Any questions for Kevin? Meeting adjourned?
Wait, Mayor Crowder, may you please state that we are adjourning to November 7th? So close.
Thank you. Okay. So our November council meeting will be on Monday, November 7th, instead of Tuesday, November 8th, which is Election Day and 4th year anniversary and all that. So it will be November 7th.
At 7:30 at night.
So we're adjourning to November 7th, 2022.